You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the June 26, 2023 meeting of the LaPorte County Council. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call the meeting to order.
Recording in progress.
We have, this is the LaPorte County Council regular meeting on June 26, 2023. I am hoping that you have turned your cell phones off so that they will not disturb us during the meeting. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Will Mr. Mullenhour, Councilor Mullenhour, please lead?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Degowski.
Present.
Councilman Keel.
Present.
Councilman Cunningham.
Present.
Councilman Rosenbaum.
Present.
Councilman Novak.
Present.
Councilman Mullenhour.
Present.
And Councilman Karanka.
Present.
All seven are present.
Thank you, sir. Approval of the June 26, 2023 agenda.
Mr. President, I'd like to make an amendment to the agenda as presented. Under new business item 5, consider approval of the LaPorte County Election Board's request to move from a precinct-based voting county to a vote center county. I'd like to move that up behind correspondence. Second.
Any other comments, conversation on that? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
under old business, LaPorte County Auditor, I'd like to run that to the end of the meeting, please, for the $10,000 appropriation legal fees.
Okay, would you like to agree to that motion? Or is this a whole new motion? I was gonna have it amended, or,
However you want to do it, however you want me to do it, I don't care.
You can have an amendment on top of an amendment, or
Okay, so-
Mr. Karanka can amend.
well, first choice is, do you wish to amend, or we'll just have
Still can amend, still can amend.
Choose to leave it as is.
Okay, so we have a request to make another change. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any comment, discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
Nay.
Okay. Motion carries. Okay, approval of the April 24, 2023 workshop minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comment, discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing no nays, motion carries. Approval of May 29, 2023 regular meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comment, conversation? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nay? Any nays? Hearing no nays, motion carries. Public comment. We now open to public comment. We request that you be respectful and try and limit your comments to 3 minutes, because tonight could be a long meeting. Anybody from the public that would like to make a comment? And please look for anybody with a hand up on Zoom.
Okay.
Please tell us your name and your address, sir.
Robert Vaughn, 505 8th Street.
Thank you.
I went to the county commissioners meeting on the 7th, I believe. I have a issue here. On May 10th, I paid my tax bill, put it in the depositories here on the county property. I did it around 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. and on May 10th. And through a little bit of a process of review and stuff like that, I noticed my check hadn't cleared after a period of time. So on May 23rd, I went to the treasurer's office and wanted to know what was up. And she said, well, your payment was late. And as late, there was a stack of them, and I'm estimating here about an inch thick. somewhere about there. I paid mine and my mother-in-law's bill together now I've been doing that process for about 10 years. I worked out of town, I'd write the check. Sometimes I'd drop it in the morning, but I worked an hour and a half out of town, and I was running late. Sometimes I didn't do it, sometimes I got it when I'm home. But I always paid it on the 10th. And the treasurer told me, oh no, we went over there and got everything out of there by 4 o'clock. And I said, I'm sorry, May 10th goes until 11:59:59. Those boxes say that they can be used for nights and on the weekends. And I paid it at night. And I said, I'm sure that there's cameras around here that you look and you'll find the silver van, pull up to the one on Michigan there, because this one's basically unacceptable because of the roundabout's not there. I go about 7 p.m. You'll see my van pull up. You'll see my body get out, walk over there and deposit 2 slips. Now, the people at the treasurer's office most of the time are pretty nice, but I started catching an attitude over there, and I said, well, we took it at 4 p.m., and you're late, you got to pay 5%. And I said, that's crap. I said, because May 10th goes 11:59:59. You've got cameras around here. It's been proved before when there was an incident. They were trying to evaluate if somebody did something nefarious. They had the video. I noticed the cameras are out there now on the side of the camera. I said, if you, as the treasurer and or the county, want to make sure people pay it before 11:59:59, then view the cameras, put a timestamp, put a solenoid on there and locks it, and they can't put anything in there until after 12 p.m. It's 7 o'clock and you reset it. Now, I'll be honest with you, the 5% is kind of minuscule between my mother-in-law's and mine. It's the fact that I've been doing this for 10 years, over 10 years, never had a problem, and now I got a problem. So I went to the commissioners went back and forth. Sidebar, part of the public comment, when people come for public comment, they're not here to bitch all the time. They're looking for direction. They're looking for some way, some outlet, some kind of avenue to go to get information, because we don't know stuff. We don't work in it, we don't deal it, we read crap in the paper, but we're sick of it. I come here to the commissioners meeting just to try and say, hey, you got a problem. You guys got tax bills, you see it, it says May 10th, it says November 23rd or whatever it is coming up. It doesn't say 4 p.m. by the end of business day. If the commissioners, if the LaPorte County, if the state of Indiana wants that, print it on there, put it on there. But every document that I've gotten from the county for decades, the information that's available on these depositories don't say anything about 4 p.m. So after the commissioners meeting, the auditor had said, yeah, there's a waiver process that can go it if you can demonstrate it. So I went back over to the treasurer's office, started talking to them again. On the 7th, got filled with a little bit of an attitude, and I said, listen, here's what the commissioner said. One of the commissioners said, I think you got a legitimate gripe here. I said, I know I've got a legitimate gripe. If you want it by 4 o'clock, put it on the paperwork. If you want to say 12 o'clock, anything after 12 o'clock, 11:59, you have somebody out there, close it up, lock it up, put a solenoid on it, do whatever you want. But mine was in there, my mother-in-law was in there. The lady over there said the commissioners have nothing to do with the financial aspect, which I thought was ironic because they approved $2 million when I went to the commissioners meeting. So everybody, and maybe that's a problem in this county, every department head, everybody should be worried about the financial costs instead of just going back to the tax papers and want more money. They need to operate efficiently. When you've got a stack of checks in there that had not been processed by May 23rd, which was almost 2 weeks, you're missing out on at least 5% interest. And there was a stack of them there. Now, I can't tell you exactly how many. I know my 2 were in there and unopened on May 23rd, and mine didn't clear until May 28th. So you guys are missing 18 days of financial money that is just sitting on somebody's desk. And so she told me, well, you have to go to the county council. And when I went to the county commissioners, the now attorney said, oh, this public comment, nobody can answer a question. Bull crap. Again, the constituents are looking for direction from you people. I understand if you don't have all the information and you can't respond, but you can at least say go this way, do that something. The auditor did say that there was an avenue. So during my conversation with the treasurer, he said, well, I'll have to talk with the auditor and I will take your information, which he did, and I will call you back. That was June 7th. Nothing. So, the dilemma that we have, we, as in you and us and everybody else that pays taxes in this county, and as a taxpayer, that I want to hold people responsible for their activities, we need to figure out a program in here to say either it's done by 4 o'clock on the document, if that's legal, which I'm not sure because I think some of this is set up by the state, or we need to put some other kind of avenue out there, or tell the treasurer's office, hey, you be out there at 11:59, you take everything out, and after that it's late. But I don't care if it's late or not, get those checks cashed and get the money into the bank so we can start getting their money. Like I said, it's a little bit of percentage in there.
Okay, Mr. Vaughn, you've given me your information at 505 8th Street, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you've given them the rest of your information. If you have a piece of paper and if you can leave, just hand us somebody your phone number. So
219-363-4970. I don't care if people call me and give me stuff or not.
Please repeat the last 4 digits.
I'm sorry?
Last 4 digits, 410.
4970.
I thought we removed that interest and penalty.
Never got notified, never got anything.
Mr. Auditor, please. What I will do is I will look into this. So normally we do not try to answer back, but I want to be respectful for you for coming here, for sharing all of this. And so one of us, and mostly I will take a look into it. So you will be getting a call from me by Friday the latest. Okay?
Mr. Vaughn,
I appreciate it. First of all, let me say that 99% of the people, and I used to be on the hazmat team, so I know what the county and had to deal with. I talked about dealing with the IDEM and the EPA and other governmental agencies. 99% of the people I work with in the county have been fantastic. People are just coming in to do their job. They don't want to get a bunch of grief and crap from people like me bitching and complaining. However, and the amount is small, but the principle, I've been doing, like I said, for 10 years, over 10 years, and now all of a sudden it slips out.
Well, we're gonna.
the bigger issue is the fact that even if you had paid it on the 9th, if they're not opening the envelopes until 10 days later, what difference does it really
Well,
make? So we could have a 24-hour, if we're not getting the mail out of that mailbox, then we ought to have a policy that we don't clear anybody late in the mailbox for 24 hours.
Well, they said they pulled it out on the 11th, because they went over there, they closed it up on the 10th at 4 o'clock, they pulled it on the 11th.
Right.
And when I went in there on the 23rd, they had a stack that were rubber band together. And he pulled mine and my mother-in-law's out.
Amend the agenda again, because I'd make a motion, I don't think there's any council member up here that doesn't agree with this point. And the fact that we should be getting these checks cashed and get them into the bank.
Yes, but in all honesty, we do not have the treasurer available to us this evening, so it is
We can
best.
make a motion that from this day forward, anything that's dropped in our mailbox, we give them a 24-hour allowance. That way it cures that problem from 4 to midnight. How does that hurt anybody? They're not gonna open envelopes and cash checks that day anyway. Banks are closing before they get them.
I'm certainly interested in entertaining a second on that, but Mr. DiMartino, do we have the ability as the council to actually set policy on that, or is that entirely up to the treasurer?
At this point in time, I can't answer that question. We have to look into it because there are some state ramifications, there are some state issues too with tax collection. I know that when I postmark my federal tax return on the 15th of April, that I'm good to go, even though they get it on the 20th. So we'll have to look
Exactly.
into that. But I'll get back to you.
One moment, we have Councilor Yagelski, if you would be so kind.
One thing over here is easy for me to do is I was on the phone. Joy's taking care of it. It is 11:59. She will take care of it. All I have to do is meet up with the treasurer's office. She'll take care of it.
So it's been waived.
Doesn't it say on here that if it's in the postmark,
Okay, well,
there's
you've-
allowed.
you've-
Mr.
what you
Mr.
need.
Yagowski, but the issue is that I'm sure this is not the only person who deposited.
Right. And she'll put notice out. She'll do what she has to do. It was a misunderstanding in her office, but it's 11:59. She'll take care of it. If there's anything else that needs to be put
Mr.
out.
Vaughn, you're rewarded for coming forward because now the treasurer's office is gonna take care of that. And probably some other people are gonna see it and have the same problem. Hopefully it takes care of them as well.
Well, part of my last statement on this, and again, I appreciate, and everybody's pretty much comfortable, but from the constituent's point of view, and you guys are all living in LaPorte, so you understand that, this is all part of the circus that's going on. And so part of my complaint is, maybe this is a coattail of that problem, being bounced around, being passed around, was a little frustrating. But again, and the reason why I'm coming up, I'm not the Don Quixote chasing windmills here. I'm just saying there's a problem. There's numerous problems. And they said you're in charge of the financial, so I attacked it on the financial front. So I appreciate anything and everything.
Glad we were able to work that out for you so quickly.
Hey, you guys have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else that would like to make a public comment? Anybody on Zoom that'd like to put a hand up to make a public comment? Hearing none, seeing none, public comment is now closed. We move on to department head reports.
Good evening, Mr. President, Council, Sean Fitzpatrick, Director of Facilities. And I was coming to look for a motion of support for some items that I know it was last minute, so I apologize for that. I'm not at the desk all day. I'm kind of moving around throughout the various facilities trying to see what's going on so we could, get everything in the best shape we can. So again, I apologize for that. So anyone that had not had a chance to see the email, I do have copies of what was sent in order for you to review. But so there were some, excuse me, some items that are kind of pressing that we were looking to get funding for or a motion of support at this point, because the process is a little more complicated than just this part. So just a motion of support so we could look forward to getting the appropriations on the agenda. So there were some items at the fairgrounds that we were looking for, some infrastructure things at the Hyler building, and some other aesthetic things that we think is important for the county and our facilities, and then some budgetary shortfalls that we were anticipating getting funded for. So I know, like I said, this isn't the time to get the exact appropriation, but if there's any questions from some of the items that were sent out, I can answer any of them that I can.
To be honest, getting this an hour and 15 minutes before the meeting doesn't give us a lot of time to look it over.
Yeah, I understand.
I want to support you in your job to do maintenance, but you're going to have to help me do my job in fiscal oversight.
No, I understand that, and like I said, it wasn't my intention to get this stuff in last minute. After I spoke with the commission Wednesday, my intention was to get it out the next day. It took me a little longer getting the data compiled.
I don't have a problem doing a motion of support for the fairground items, just because I'm aware of those items. I wasn't aware of the Hyler building, the elevator, the awning. So I'd make a motion of support for the $74,085 for the items that fairgrounds, because those items need to be done.
I'll second that. I do have a question though afterward.
We have a motion, we have a second, so we're now into discussion.
Question is, and I agree with what Councilman Novak just said, because the fair is just around the corner, and it appears that looks like this pretty much is an immediate need. On the elevator for the Hyler building, is there a problem there with safety or anything?
The thing with the Hyler building, the information, all the electronic components and all of the motherboard and everything that operates the elevator is outdated and antiquated. It can't be updated. Parts can't be purchased to repair it, and if it is to go out, then it'll be basically an empty box in the wall.
It's still operating
I
now?
was trying to get a third quote to look at that. I got two, so I wasn't able to get a third quote. So that's what was part of the issue with getting that one out in time.
It's still operational though.
It's still operational currently, but if it goes out, we'll be out of ADA compliant because there'll be no access for anybody with disabilities to the second floor.
Sean, to add some color to it, since you and I talk a little bit more frequently being a liaison, what kind of repairs have you had to do recently with that?
So there's been multiple occasions where someone has been stuck in there, and I've had to call Otis on an emergency basis to get people out of it. But it's all part of the electronic components that it glitches out basically.
Question.
Mr. Yagowski, please.
So I'm familiar with this, with the steel mills. And they're always going to tell you they're outdated stuff, but the problem is they can always find the information they want. One, two, if somebody's stuck, don't we have the ability to get people out without having to call Otis?
I'm sorry.
Don't they have the ability to get people out without calling Otis?
Without calling.
There's keys. There's keys
And
to
get people
into
out of the elevators without
Isn't
calling
there?
Otis.
Don't you guys have
Yeah,
the
so
ability to get-
in some instances, we're able to recall the car to the main level and get the doors open. Other times, we may need assistance from the fire department. We don't call Otis to get people out. We call Otis to get the elevator back operational.
Right. So since January, how many people have gotten stuck in the elevator?
There's at least, since January, at least 4 instances that I can recall, separate instances.
And what was
It's
the
recent.
reasons? Anything that we could find a way to get it fixed? Was it something that we did, or something that pushed too many buttons? You know, what was the reason for it?
No, so
Well, yeah.
no, there's every time they came out, they were able to get the car back operational, and sometimes it was mechanical things with the door, and other times it was things with the electrical components, and that's what brought it to my attention.
And that's my point. First of all, because they're the only ones who can work on the elevator because of state law and federal law. So they can work on the elevator, which is true. So out of 4 times, it wasn't always because of electronics. I mean, I don't want you to sit there and say it's a general thing out there. We got to fix something.
No.
We got to figure out what's wrong with the elevator. If it's a door latch mechanism, if that has to just be replaced, that's fine. I deal with this, like I said, every day. I call elevator companies at the mills over 4 or 5 times per day. There's always going to be some type of call. It's a mechanism that could fail because of people pushing buttons, slamming the door, whatever it happens to be at the time. 1, 2, I don't understand we're asking for money. If there was an emergency, you have an elevator fund. You have a budget for elevators.
Correct, to repair, and that's to cover all of the elevators, the Hyler building, the courthouse is. That's for repairs.
So what if you use that and then come back next month?
There's not enough for this. So the one quote that we got from Schindler is for $98,200. The other one that we got from Otis was it was $139,783, and that did not include any updates to the car itself. The quote from Schindler also included updates to the car.
I think that we need to, I have ability, I can talk to Otis myself. I think we should put this on hold right now. This isn't something that happened over yesterday or over the last
No.
1 year, 2 years. So we've got a budget to take care of calls like this right now. We need to take a look. We need to take a look at this more than just simply saying right now, we're going to redesign, rebuild the car.
Thank you, Councilman.
Is there any?
Still don't hear it.
Mr. Fitzpatrick, can you detail how much is left in your budget right now?
For
Well,
the entire
some of these
budget?
different categories.
I don't know the exact number offhand now.
So you could have funds left that could still be spent first before coming back to us for an additional appropriation.
If I'm able to, depending on the category of the account, if I'm able to move funds around for specific items, yes. If it needs to be that way.
And Mr. Fitzpatrick, some of these things for the fairgrounds have been known things from previous months, correct?
Some have, and some are probably longer than that, but
But they've been known about, and they're just, you didn't deal with them, and so
it's not
therefore
that
we
I
had an
didn't deal with
opportunity.
it's not that I didn't deal with it.
Okay, I'll take that back. Let me just, that these were known issues and that I believe that you had some work orders on a few of these and that we should have known about this before, whether or not we had money for them or should have been putting money aside for them. So
I believe some of these items need to be outsourced because of the technical level with the electric and different things like that, so.
Correct.
hearing no other, is there any other comments before we call for a vote? Support? Hearing no other comments, because it's monetary, please do a roll call even though it is a motion support.
Mr. Chairman, would you please restate the motion?
The motion is a motion support for the $74,085 for the fairgrounds.
Great.
Councilman Rosenbaum,
I'm a nay.
Councilman Yagelski,
Nay.
Councilman Keel,
Nay.
Councilman Mullenhour,
Aye.
Councilman Karanka,
Aye.
Councilman Cunningham,
Aye.
and Councilman Novak.
Aye.
4 ayes, 3 nays. Motion of support passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, that was just a motion for the fairgrounds, correct?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to table the elevator and such other
Well,
items.
we don't need to because this is department.
Under department head,
So it's not even
Oh,
a regular part of our meeting.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much as well. Is there any other department heads? Thank you for voting.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. I see here this evening, there
Please
is-
state your name, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Joe Haney, LaPorte County Commissioner. I see here on the agenda toward the end here, there's a request that's listed as coming from the LaPorte County Board of Commissioners for requesting additional appropriations for complex flood renovation. Specifically, I just want to speak briefly on the 1.7 million that's being requested here. The Board of Commissioners has not requested this money of you here tonight. I'm not sure exactly how it got on the agenda here this evening, but it is not a request from the board itself. At the last meeting, I attempted to address this. We amended the agenda and we briefly spoke about it before the meeting was abruptly adjourned. During that time period, I stated that I did not request this. I asked Commissioner Mrazinski if he requested it. He said no. The other commissioner, Commissioner Grammarosa, refused to answer. So for your edification here this evening, this is not a request from the Board of Commissioners. We have not voted on it. The Board of Commissioners controls the buildings, controls the repairs of the buildings, and in my opinion, this needs to be addressed by the Board of Commissioners beforehand for a couple of reasons. I won't get into the bid versus quote difference here. We kind of spoke about that in a prior meeting and a workshop. It's my hope that some of this stuff will be covered by insurance. And then we've obviously had the discussion between insurance money and public funds. We're obviously still going to have to deal with the difference of when the emergency ends. Probably the emergency ends when mitigation ends. Then again, that's something we're going to have to go through. The SBOA obviously has been referred to before as a paper tiger. I don't know if I take the same view on that, but I think it's important to make sure that before you take action on this, the Board of Commissioners takes action on it to actually send it to you. There are in IC Code 36-1-12 criminal penalties for failing to abide by some of these statutes. So I would urge send it back to the commissioners so they can have a vote on it and we can address it, and then that way hopefully you don't get wrapped up in anything should things get any more serious. There's also a section in 36-1-12 that addresses change orders. And change orders come from a different section, but in 36-1-12 there is the issue dealing with contracts being voided if things aren't properly done as far as bids, quotes, and things along those lines. So it is important to note that a change order could technically, if it falls outside of the scope of the law here, could violate the entire contract, assuming there actually is a contract in place that specifically delineates a lot of these repairs. So I would ask that you table the motion for later this evening, just based upon the fact that the commissioners did not request it. The Board of Commissioners didn't request it.
Thank you, but we will have a full discussion when that time comes. Thank you.
So, thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. Connie Grammarosa, LaPorte County Commissioner. I'm up here for three different little issues, but first I'd just like to talk about the issue that Commissioner Haney spoke of. He did bring it up at the commissioners meeting, and apparently that was the same day that the president, probably vice president, set the agenda. And so we were not privy to that agenda. I'm sure that the auditor and the president and the vice president were. I did see the agenda when it came out on Friday. And actually, the request was asked at the April 24th joint session. And at that session, I believe all 7 councilmen and all 3 commissioners were there. And so therefore, we wouldn't have had to vote on it again at another commissioners meeting because we actually had a discussion with everyone at the joint session. So that's all I wanted to say on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councilman Yagelski, I didn't know you weren't going to be here. So, but I am going to read it out loud. So,
That's fine.
we have an issue.
I'll send it to him. You keep working.
Deborah is our secretary, Deborah Fly Nelson. And then we have another employee who works for the county, is definitely a county employee, and she is paid separately to do minutes. I don't want to name her because the name is really not relevant as much as the fact that she is a county employee and she gets paid a stipend for $12 a sheet per minutes for your council. And she doesn't have to attend the meetings and she gets paid extra, no taxes taken out. It's just a straight fee. On 8/19, she got $100. 8/19 of 21, she got $100. On 8/26 of 21, she got $120. 10/8 of 21, she got $112. On 11/5 of 21, $120. On 7/17, she got $104. On 2/17, even though the minutes were paid at $104 on the 17th, again, it was relisted on the same date for $384, and it re-included the December minutes. So it had November, December, and January's. On 4/22, it says service 118. I'm not sure what that means. 5/6, 228. Service, not sure what that means. 7/14/22, 337. On service again. On 8/19 of 22, $204. On 9/22 of 22, $156. On April 20th of 22, $168. On 11/18 of 22, $192. And On 12/15 of 22, $144. Then we jump into 23, and on 5/19, for some reason, this got kicked to us for $108 for the Board of Commission reorganization minutes, which we could have easily, even though our secretary wasn't working for us, we could have easily had her do them. And then on 6/9 of 23, $456. No taxes taken out. So then we look at our secretary, and we pay our secretary for coming here and 1 month out of 1 meeting out of the month, it's an evening meeting. So she gets off at 4 o'clock and she has to come back at 6 o'clock. From January through May, she was never paid that. The auditor's office did not say that she got paid for evening meetings. And again, I was a new commissioner, so I had no idea. And one commissioner wasn't here and the other commissioner didn't bring it up. So she never got paid for the first 5 months. So when I became aware that they actually do pay, we are paying out of our part-time budget. Our part-time budget doesn't designate what we have to pay our people. The same way the auditor's budget does, he gets to pay what he wants. So I was requested for minutes, I was requested to come before you guys and ask you for permission on what I could pay her for the evening minutes. When I asked where were the minutes for this individual to get paid, they said that there was a gentleman's agreement. So I ask you, can I have a gentlewoman's agreement? Can I pay my secretary $75 for being here? I mean, she doesn't get paid extra to do the minutes. She does it as part of her job. But how can I get a gentlewoman's agreement? And so, I don't expect an answer right now. Maybe we can work this out. But it has always been my understanding that if it is our part-time budget, we pay what we want out of our part-time budget. And I don't think with the cost of living going up, $75 is a lot to ask. So that was one of the first things that I kind of wanted to talk about.
Can I ask Guy a question?
One moment. I recognize Councilor Novak.
Guy, this employee, I mean, we can't require this employee to be there without compensating them, correct?
True, so what I'm hearing is it comes out of the part-time budget, and I don't know about that, so whether it's stipend or not, but to me, when I hear part-time, then it goes back to the salary ordinance, so then you have to be bound by something from the salary ordinance. So this really needs to be discussed at a later date.
But that would also apply to the person doing the minutes.
But it's $12, that's within the salary ordinance, $12 an hour.
$12 a sheet.
Well, I'm telling you, a sheet is probably close to an hour.
Wow.
When you're listening and transcribing.
I think we need to look at
don't
both
know,
of them.
Whatever, I don't know that, but we'll have to look at that.
Right.
Maybe we can translate it to hours,
Okay.
but that's not something we can answer off of the cuff.
Okay.
Well, that's
Thank you.
why I said we can
Yeah.
come back at a later date.
Does that make sense, Mr. Novak?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. President,
Yes, Ms.
so I do understand what she's trying to say. The problem of it is that this person's working 2 different jobs. Because of fair wage, I don't care if she works 3 different jobs, she gets time and a half. So you're talking more than $12 an hour. I don't care gentleman's agreement or not. The fair wage, whether I have you do this job, you go down the hall, do the job. If you're working over the 40 hours, you would pay time and a half. So something doesn't sound right here.
Okay, well, we will be looking into it.
I'm gonna have to look into it, Mr. Yagowski. I mean, I understand your point.
I don't disagree, but we're not talking the same thing here. I'm looking into it, making a statement like this, we're talking a Fair Wage Act. If she's working 2 different jobs or 3 different jobs, she gets paid, he or she gets paid time and a half.
Commissioner Grammarosa, if I may.
Yes.
Has the Board of Commissioners discussed this and to ask that you come here and request this from us? Was this a discussion that happened among the board?
No, I'm actually coming here because I'm the president of the board, and when we went ahead, there were several commissioners that signed off on this, and then when it went to the auditor's office, they paid what they wanted to. So it's always my understanding that you can only pay what we sign off on, correct? So can you take a bill, I mean, are they allowed to legally take a bill and scratch out the amounts that, and then put the amounts that they want? It didn't have to come back to the commission and say, okay, we won't agree to pay this amount, but we'll pay this amount. What they did was the payroll office just went ahead and paid what they wanted to pay. So, I mean, I think that we should talk about this offline, but I think it's a problem.
We're going to take this offline, and I know that you want to respond to something, but let's just take this offline, and we will have everybody in the discussion. I promise that. Thank you. Would you had a third issue, you said?
So my second issue is obviously the credit card, and being the financial body, I think that you guys should be aware of this. And again, I didn't have time, and I didn't think you guys wanted to go through all these emails, but if any of you do, you're welcome to come up to the commissioners.
Is this about what happened over the weekend?
Well, it's not just this weekend. I mean, this is an ongoing problem because we had the same situation happen
And it's
in May.
And excuse me, it's my understanding that now the commissioners have taken on this responsibility to correct this.
We took on the responsibility on June 7th.
Okay.
And they have not relinquished, the auditor's office has not relinquished the card to us.
It has been relinquished, actually, as of today. I emailed you.
It must have came in after.
Hold on. Again, I appreciate you wanting to respond, but it's our meeting and I'm just trying to take it in. So I'm going to ask you to close the conversation here. Again, another thing that should be taken offline, and rather than air things here. And again, the proper people will be included in that conversation.
Okay, just so that we do have that conversation.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other department heads? Hearing none, we close the department head section and we're going to move on to liaison reports. And we're going to go from right to left, if you don't, my right to left. So, Mr. Cunningham.
It's already 6:45. I'll pass.
I'll try to be speedy. This month I have attended 2 different AIC trainings on budgets, which is good timing with budget hearings coming up next month. I attended the meetings for US 30 Coalition, South County Community Coalition, and Redevelopment Commission. I participated in several meetings about vote centers, which we'll be hearing about later in this meeting. And I also traveled to Detroit for the National Association of Regional Councils annual conference as part of my duties as a NERC commissioner, and was elected to the position of Senior Vice President on the NARC Board of Directors. I want to recognize Deputy Weights and Measures Inspector Dakota Euler, who's here this evening, for passing his state exam with a 100% score. My understanding is that he'll be taking over as the lead inspector next week, so congratulations to him. The largest project that I focused on this month as it relates to my liaison assignments is our interest revenue. Last month, you may recall that I brought up the topic of our county investment strategy. I said at that time we had an opportunity to generate $11,000 per day in interest revenue by investing our tax collection funds with a statewide investment pool before distributing them to other units of government. Unfortunately, our county missed out on that opportunity to earn over $300,000. Related to that, but separate, the county keeps a sizable amount of cash assets with Horizon Bank. According to financial data I requested, we generated $48,672 in interest revenue in the first 5 months of this year. Given our current balance, this is really, really low. Had our funds been invested in short-term CDs or with the state's investment pool where they could have earned competitive rates, we would have brought in over $1.5 million in interest revenue this year so far. We didn't do that. There are other important details in this matter, which in the interest of time I won't dive into tonight, but any opportunity to generate additional revenue for the county, and especially this amount, is worth taking. So I'm asking that a few of my colleagues volunteer to join me in a meeting with the county treasurer to figure out how we can encourage and support her in the need to generate more interest revenue and get this matter figured out quickly. With that concludes my report.
Mr. Novak?
Excuse me. Attended the RDC meeting this last month. Complex flood is obviously ongoing all the time. FMEC, Purdue Extension. Spoke with the clerk about the upcoming talk tonight about the voting centers. And that's it for right now.
Mr. Karanka?
To be unique, I'll stick with the one item that nobody else has added. Soil and Water District meeting was on June 6th, which I attended. Other than that, it's a lot of repeats for everybody else.
Thank you. Mr. Mullenhour?
Pretty much the same thing. Did attend salary discussions with yourself, Mike Rosenbaum, and Justin Kyle with the Health Department and the Sheriff's Department. And the only other thing is I want to thank the EMS for putting on a nice open house when they had on May 24th, when they had the open house out at Rolling Prairie, and it's just a great building. It's great to see that finally come to a head. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Yagowski?
Nothing at this time.
I've attended quite a few meetings, ASC conference, and spoken to more people this past month than I've done in the past couple of months combined. So with that being said, let's move on to correspondence.
We have none.
Okay, we had moved up on our agenda a new item. With the county clerk, please come up and talk about the LaPorte County Election Board's request to move from a precinct-based voting county to a vote center county, and just take a moment to explain that.
Okay, so basically when we have when we have precinct-based voting, that means that the only place that you can vote on election day is the polling location within your precinct. By moving LaPorte County to a vote center county, that doesn't mean that we're not going to have the vote centers within precincts. We will. They're going to be all over the county. But it does mean that any registered voter in the county can vote at any vote center. So I know this is especially important for working people. If you live in Hannah, you probably don't work there. You probably work in LaPorte or Michigan City, maybe, wherever. But this will make it much easier for those people to stop by any vote center and vote on election day. Kind of the same thing for Kingsford Heights. If you live in Kingsford Heights, you probably don't work there. You may work in LaPorte, Michigan City, whatever. So again, this is going to help with that. My vision is that this will increase voter turnout. I know it's important for our poll workers, because on election day, if they have forgotten to take advantage of the early voting, most of them they're not working the precinct that they live in. So therefore, if they forgot to take advantage of that early voting, they cannot leave the polling location that they're working at to go to their location to vote. Therefore, they're not voting. So this way, they would be able to vote right there where they're working. This also is going to allow us, and I want to start by saying that we are required to have 8 polling locations in all of LaPorte County. We're putting 8 within Michigan city limits alone. So we will have a total to start with of no fewer than 38 vote centers. But we're still saving money, and this is what you guys want to hear, because rather than staffing those locations by precinct, this will now allow us to staff by location. And I have heard some concerns that maybe on the busier elections, we may be understaffed. We can certainly tweak that. If we know the Civic Auditorium is going to be a huge vote center, we're going to add additional staff to that. So the County Election Board can certainly do that. I did tell you guys I would bring you some numbers, because this year the County Election Board did pass a resolution to staff by location rather than precinct for the municipal election, and I believe we saved just under $25,000 for one primary. That was with an increase in the poll worker pay, but using fewer poll workers. So, you guys have any questions?
We do here.
I just have a comment. I think this is a great idea, because last year during the election, on election day, the early voting, they can use the centers, they can go almost anywhere and vote. And then election day, they had to go back to their precincts.
Correct.
There was so much confusion, and so I think it's great that they can go vote anywhere they want. I think it's a great idea.
So, if I may, anybody else? Okay. Okay,
I think it's also very good for people that have recently moved and their precinct has changed. Doesn't make any difference. You go to your old one and you're still gonna be able to vote there.
Correct.
Because usually what happens, they go there and they say, oh no, you don't live in this district anymore, you gotta go over here and drive 3 or 4 miles. So I just think the convenience of it all is, if you save money and add convenience, that's a win-win.
I do want to say that we have the support of both party chairmen, both of the major party chairmen. I have reached out to the Libertarian Party chair. I haven't heard anything back yet, but I don't know if maybe I got his email wrong or something, so I will attempt that again.
I spoke with him this morning and he's 100% in favor of vote centers.
Fantastic.
The only comment I got is, thank you very much, Mrs. Stevens, for this. It was very well explained, and if you didn't have any clue after you read this, why you knew it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
we have a motion, a second, but we still
Is he
have
done?
a comment.
I thought he was done.
And Mr. Yagowski, you have a comment? Okay, I just saw a hand fly, so.
I'm excited to see us do this and move to vote centers. It's a fantastic idea. For anyone in the public who wants to see the vote center plan so they can understand what exactly we're doing here, where can they find it?
Okay, so we're looking for a spot on the website to put it. However, I am doing a lot of public meetings. I will be here. I have to leave for Indy tonight. I'll be back on Wednesday night. I'll be here right in this room Thursday night at 6 p.m. Anybody is welcome to attend. I will contact Drew at Alco to see if he will air it for us. I meant to do that today and slipped my mind. We're also going to do another one in July in Michigan City. I will request that we get all the dates and times of all the public meetings added to the main page of the county website so that people can find it there. I am doing Sound Off on the 17th. I'm doing the show with Rick Federici, and we're trying to get this out everywhere.
What time's the meeting Thursday?
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Good commercial, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
One more comment quickly, that if you get in touch with Alco, I think you probably could do a meeting just with Drew White where he'd interview you that could be replayed over and over as well.
I will certainly reach out to him about that.
Okay, I will just add my comment. I'm totally supportive of saving money, that's for sure. But more importantly, I have been there. I have witnessed when somebody comes, your point exactly, when somebody comes to voting location and they moved and they didn't change the address, thought that this is where they're supposed to vote, and then they're running around all over, a nice small county. No, we're not. So running around, yeah, and you feel terrible and the frustration on their part. Some of them had to wait in a line for a little bit and then find that out. So yes. So with that being said, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a safe trip.
Thanks.
I just sent Drew a message, so.
Okay, we now need to open up for a public hearing for the NP Westville Industrial LLC Economic Revitalization Area. This is for a waiver. Just give me a moment to find it in the stack.
It's right there in the sentence of the next line.
This is for a waiver of noncompliance.
With respect to a tax abatement for this entity.
Yeah.
And so we open it for public comment if anybody would like to comment.
Is there someone from NP Westville Industrial that would like to speak on this matter?
There he is. Okay.
Good evening. I'll be brief as I can be, but I will start with my name. My name is Dan Bowditch. I work for SCH, short Elliott Hendrickson Incorporated. We do assist the Office of the Auditor with calculation and monitoring of all ERA assessed valuation, tax abatements, and enterprise zone calculations. It was brought to our attention that NP Westville Industrial in 2022 did not file their required Form 322RE or their CF1 with the county. It was, and the current owner of the property is NP Westville Industrial LLC at 6500 South US Highway 421. It is otherwise known as the Dollar General facility, which is a cold storage logistics facility. The request before you tonight is a request for a waiver of noncompliance for the filing not occurring in a timely manner. The form was filed untimely. It is attached to the resolution once the issue was addressed. The council did approve on October 29, 2018, a resolution approving the tax abatement. The company did make all the necessary requirements that were fully assessed on January 1st, 2020. It is 675,000 to 700,000 square feet of space. They currently employ 100 to 125 employees with a salary of about $3.9 to $4.1 million in total. They are now in their third year of a deduction, and that would be at a 70% abatement percentage applied to their improvements that would be deducted. In working with the company, I also did check to make sure their taxes are current, because you want to make sure their taxes are current if you're going to waive any compliance. Their taxes are current as of the pay 2023 taxes. And in working with the county auditor, as well as speaking with Councilman Keel, the request in the resolution does state on the now therefore, if approved, that the county council will not entertain or consider any further waivers. So this is a one-time issue for this as a waiver. But I do want to, and I'm here to answer any technical questions you may have on the waiver. For disclaimer purposes, I'm not an attorney. I'm not an accountant. I'm an senior economic development professional and associate with SCH, leading their economic development finance practice. But with me here today is Andy Hertug. He is a tax and incentive specialist with MP Industrial, and he's here to speak to you. I believe he's flown in from Kansas City.
Yeah.
Yes. So he came from Kansas City to speak with you.
So, welcome to LaPorte.
Thank you. Well, good evening, and thank you for your time this evening. So yes, I work for North Point Development, which is the investment and development parent company of NP Westville, wholly owned entity of what we call Midwest Trade Center, the Dollar General. And I wanted to be present to provide a little context and ultimately take ownership of this non-compliance through a little bit of context. So as Mr. Bowditch said, we acquired this building in late 2018 and negotiated a 5-year tax abatement. I joined North Point Development in January of 2022, last year. And prior to my joining the firm, 2 other people had kind of facilitated our incentive compliance prior to me. And when I took over, it was my understanding that we had facilitated our annual reporting through a member of the economic development group, who's no longer with the county, is my understanding. So by default, I had worked through that individual to submit that in what was at the time a timely manner, but it wasn't until we received our tax bill earlier this year from the auditor's office that we became aware of the fact that the abatement was not applied. So I called the auditor's office, and they were very gracious in explaining that the reason why it was not on there was because I had not filed it with them, which was what I was supposed to do. So worked quickly to make sure that we could go through the proper channels to try and be before you today for this waiver of noncompliance. And we have since filed the application for this 2023 cycle in a timely manner, which would be year 4. So as I said, it's one of our core values as a company to take ownership of every situation, good or bad. In this case, my fault. So that's why I'm before you today, appealing essentially on behalf of our tenants who will ultimately receive these tax abatements through our triple net lease structure.
Thank you for the explanation. Can you confirm if NP Industrial is in full compliance with the terms of the abatements?
To my knowledge, yes.
And just for the edification of the public, this won't create any additional costs. This is just continuing to extend the abatement or offer the abatement that was already granted, no additional cost.
Correct.
Thank you.
Is there anybody in the public that would like to make a comment?
Mike, what, no?
Okay, I had just asked if anybody in the public would like to make a comment, and please state your name.
Mike Schultz, LaPorte County Assessor. I'm in favor of granting this. I think this just shows how imperative it is that we get a good economic development local team that can help follow these through. We receive them, the auditor receives them, but once we receive them, they're filed. We don't pay attention to them because it's really not our job. But when you have a good economic development team, they have files and they know when things are due. They go out and make site visits. They go out and check. So it's imperative that we get a good economic development team again in LaPorte County. But I'm in favor of granting this. They are a very good company to work with.
Thank you. Is there any other comment? Any other public comment? We get to have an opportunity to comment after, so.
Thank you.
You do? Okay, please.
First of all, I'd like to thank the gentleman who came all the way from Kansas City for taking accountability, because that's a rare thing in today's society. Somebody steps up and says, it's my fault. And I appreciate the fact that you were so honest about it and not pointing fingers at someone else. Thank you. And for that reason, I will be voting in favor.
Okay, I am now going to close public comment. We move on to ordinances, resolutions. We have resolution 2023-6, a resolution granting a waiver of noncompliance with respect to a tax abatement for an NP Westville Industrial LLC.
Motion to read by title only.
Second.
We have a motion and several seconds to read by title only. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I need another motion.
Now we need a motion.
Gotta read it.
I'd like to make a motion, they gotta read it. Somebody's
okay,
gotta read it by title.
All right.
So,
This is a resolution of the LaPorte County Council granting a waiver of noncompliance pursuant to Indiana Code 6-1.1-12.1-11.3 with respect to an assessed valuation deduction, tax abatement, for the real property improvements of NP Westville Industrial LLC.
motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Do we need a roll call? Okay,
No.
I just want to be sure.
You're good.
Okay. Hearing that. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attendance this evening.
Under old business, we have moved one of them down. So reconsider the following tabled items from the previous council meeting. I'm going to B, LaPorte County Superior Court number 1, a general fund transfer from court reporter pay 10174 to subscriptions 31007 to pay for ZipRecruiter fee 4,000. In order to discuss this, we need to take it off the table.
Motion to take off the table.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we've taken it off the table. Would anybody like to, well, you're here. We have in our
evening.
presence.
Judge Javias for the Judge of LaPorte Superior Court number 1. Just here in case you have any questions. I know we kind of went through this in January. This is just the rest of the bills for ZipRecruiter for when we were looking for a court reporter.
Okay. Would anybody like to entertain a motion?
So last month, right, there was an issue about whether you could transfer from one account to the other. Y'all
Yes.
got that answered.
We got it answered where
Okay.
we can do that.
Yeah.
Where we can go from a 100 to a 300 account.
Okay.
That is not an issue.
Thank you.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Always have a second in your pocket, buddy. Never know.
Any discussion? Since all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you
you
for your time.
Thank you very much.
We move on to new business. Consider approval of council president's authorization to hire a replacement position for LaPorte County Prosecutor's Office of Victim Advocate. Mr. Fagan, would you like to make any comment?
No, Mr. Rosenbaum, just to say that the person who's leaving
is a very long time dedicated employee and is just a replacement for her. That's all.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. Consider approval of recommendation from the 2022 Job Evaluation Committee to modify the following position. LaPorte County Board of Commissioners increase the executive assistant to the commissioners from a comment 5 to a comment 6.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes, sir. If I may, from my understanding of the comment structure is likened to private sector, where I come from, is you look at a job band or a job grade associated with the title. And that's essentially what we're doing here. And it comes down to are the duties different from any other comment 5 to any comment 6 and similar to. So that's just really the concern that I have in front of me right now.
Councilman Rosenbaum and I had the opportunity to talk with Kent Irwin, who is one of the principals at Widener, Irwin, and Shealy this weekend when we were down in Indy for training. And we talked to him about the nature of our job classification system or factor evaluation system. And one of the things we learned is we may not be applying it properly. The way that the system is supposed to work is that you look at the position and determine whether or not it meets the class. You actually go through a scoring process and determine whether or not it gets enough points to be moved into a different comment rating or different PAT or LTC rating. It's meant to be based off of the position, not necessarily the person, or well, not at all the person. We talked with him at length about this, and I think one of the things that would be helpful here is for us to bring Widener, Irwin, and Shealy in, and for them to retrain us and our job evaluation committee on how the process is supposed to work, so that we ensure that we're doing it properly. Because the consequences of applying this incorrectly are pretty difficult to fix. And so I would make a motion to amend Mr. Novak's motion to instead kick this down a month, bring Widener, Irwin, and Shealy in to train all of the members of the job evaluation committee, and then for them to rescore these individuals and bring it back to us next month and make sure that we're doing the process properly. So that would be my motion.
But there's already a motion on the table.
This is a motion to amend the motion.
Second.
That's appropriate.
Yeah, no, I know. We've had this rare, but it does happen. So we have an amended motion to move this back. Is there any further discussion?
So I guess my question would be is, all of a sudden we're realizing that something's broke?
Yes.
Is that what it is? Because of this position?
No, absolutely not.
Can I talk to the issue for 1 second, Mr. North? Sure. You know, we've had this issue with job evaluation. We're dealing with it out at Juvenile Center. I think that bringing them in and getting an understanding would really help us so we can resolve these issues. We're trying to resolve, a clerk out at Juvenile versus a clerk in the department. How do we deal with that? And we're all always scratching our heads. So maybe we can have a sit down with them and get an idea. If we can get them in rapidly, that would just be because I feel uncomfortable with a lot of this, with the job classification stuff also.
Rapidly would be good. And I want to be clear, this absolutely isn't related to any one person or any of the individuals that are up for consideration tonight. I've been studying this system since I took office. You may recall I actually sat in on one of the job evaluation committee meetings. I've spoken several times with Addie Rooker. This has spanned several months, and it's culminated in a realization this weekend, especially that we need to make a little bit of some change here.
I guess that my thing is, the thing about this position is unique. There's only one of them in the county. There's other comments, don't get me wrong. There's only one position, there's only one commissioner's administrative secretary.
But I can't, and I appreciate that, but I can't comment on that.
I know,
I just don't understand the whole classification system, and getting an answer from these folks on the phone just doesn't work. And that's, but even the commissioner's assistant, great, but we still have the issues that we're dealing with that are out there. Highway department. So maybe we can wrap this up in one, understanding. just your call, my advice.
Can I?
Absolutely agree with Mr. DiMartino's comments.
So I'm going to ask the next question. Is this to just do for this one, or were you looking to move all of them under?
For all three.
You'd hold all of them.
Yep.
Okay, I just want to be very clear what the intention is, so that nothing is being singled out. It's just to move the process. I am newly, I finally got involved with the committee myself, and unfortunately, one meeting was scheduled rather quickly, and I could not make that meeting, and so I cannot, my hearing and my questions that were answered, some process was taking place, but it didn't sound like the process that we have spoken to Kerwin, Wagner, Erwin, Shealy. We and I too have spoken with Addie Roker, both myself and also in joint with three of us on the phone with her from the other committee. So that's the last of my.
Looks like the judge wants to weigh in here. The judge is up front there.
No, I'm waiting to see what you do, because I can just tell you that my request has been bandied about since February.
We're only looking to go 1 month. And if we need to make something retroactive, we can make something retroactive.
So that anybody that went through all the hoops went before the committee, got the committee's approval, we're now going to go back and make them do everything again.
That's the way it sounds.
And Judge, yours was from February, ours was from November of last year.
There you go.
And Judge, we have the juvenile center, which was from the beginning of the year. So, I mean, I'm not.
Mike Schultz, LaPorte County Assessor. I'm a member of that committee. I was on this council when we hired Wagner and Shealy to do this. This is not an exact science when you're assigning points. But the problem is, if a department head or an elected official wants their employee to be raised a grade 2, 3, whatever, they have to show up. Do not send the employee. We should not know who we're talking to give them the points for that position. But what we're seeing is they're sending actual employees. So if it's so important for them to get a grade increase, they need to take the time to show up. They don't need to be calling individual members of the committee to ask what's going on. They call the Human Resource Committee, not the committee members themselves. I've been getting calls and calls. I don't return them because that is not the proper way to do this. But again, do not send employees for their own job classification. You as the department head or the elected official need to show up. Thank you.
We probably do need to set out a protocol.
I think that protocol is set. I think it's been ignored.
You know what?
I made a second on this, and I just like to make a comment that we take it serious on the committee. I'm one of the members of the committee and have been for the last 3 years, I think, and it is taken very serious, like Mike just indicated, and it is a point system, and I think it's a good one, but I don't have a disagreement in having them come in and listen to us or talk to us about it. Discuss it.
Now, this is not supposed to be open comment time, so, we've been, unfortunately, I don't know how we got into where we started allowing people to talk about this.
Mr. Rosenbaum, it's okay. I just wanted to respond to Mr. Schultz's comment, but if this isn't the time, that's fine.
I would say it's inappropriate. It was okay for him to be a member of the committee to come up and speak, only because he also agreed that it would not be a terrible thing to reset everything. So, and his, the comment, we'll just let it sit and stay there. No need to defend anything. So I would appreciate that. So we're going to move on. Any other comments? Yes, Mr. Cunningham?
Go ahead. I'll look at it.
I think it's been widely dispersed that we're judging the position, not the person.
Mm-hmm.
But we kind of defied logic with that back in December when we approved like an administrative assistant to a judge, but we have multiple judges. So if all those aren't looked at the same time, not really being, it's not looking at the position. Now you are looking at a person. If one judge comes in and says, well, I think my person should be moved up from 5 to 6, and they're the first judge to appear, we should call in the other judges, because they should all be doing the same thing in that position, or there should be extraordinary circumstances, but when we haven't made contact with all of them. And I'm sure that's happening in other departments where there are multiple people with same listings. So I think that's part of the issue that Mr. Keel brings up, that you've got to look at the positions across the board, not just a person that works in a position.
I agree with Mr. Cunningham, and I agree with something needs to be clarified with this system that we have. My issue is, call it what it is, there never was an issue until the individual that's in the administrative assistant for the commissioners, now that's a problem, so everything's put on hold. It was a problem getting it here tonight to a vote, or to at least for a discussion. That's what I have a problem with, when things are derailed, sidelined, put on hold, or whatever, grandstanded because of individuals and not positions.
Mr. Novak, I'd like to say that with the fact that we have 3 of them and successfully on the agenda.
I'm not referring to the other ones.
No, I understand.
Right.
But with 3 of them successfully on the agenda, raised my attention, and I looked at it as, how would I do it from my private, my separate life from here?
I don't dispute that.
Okay.
Right.
And my comment is, I'm gonna disagree, it's because of one person. So it just so happened that we read that person first because it was from 2022. And it got on the agenda because I was finally requested to be put on the agenda, and it didn't come out of the Human Resources Office. It came out of the Commissioner's Office. So that's how it finally got onto the agenda. All right, we have a motion on the floor to send this back.
We have an amendment.
Amendment to the motion on the floor to send this back so that the committee can get additional training and then reevaluate and bring it back to us. With that being said, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any nays?
Aye.
What was that?
I believe that was Mr. Yagowski saying aye.
It was, sorry.
Nay.
And now I'm asking for any nays?
Nay.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries to take that back.
So that was a motion to amend.
Motion to amend.
Now we vote on the amended motion.
So now we're going to vote on the amended motion. Thank you very much, sir. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those say nay.
Nay.
Hey,
Okay. Motion still carries. Thank you. The next item is consider appointment of Councilman Mark Yagowski as liaison to Michigan City Economic Development Commission. The reason why we need to consider this is because there is something that's said on the books. You know what? You're here. You can see it more eloquent.
Make a motion to approve him because he's the most qualified.
Yeah, he lives in the right area. That's the issue.
He's the only one qualified.
So, Mr. Saranac, please just introduce yourself.
Alan Saranac, I'm the attorney for the Michigan City Redevelopment Commission. As I've looked at the agenda, as I've heard discussion tonight, I'm not asking for money. This should be easy. All I want is a body. This is part of the double track project, and the necessary requirement for a bonding process when it relates to a public and private partnership. In this particular case, it's the city of Michigan City, obviously, but it's also then Flaherty and Collins, which is a private developer. So we have to use a different mechanism, different procedures to actually get to the bonding. And it brings out an archaic statute, an archaic ordinance, saying that one of the steps in this process is getting approval from the Economic Development Commission, of which the last time one was formed, I think, was in 2012. The ordinance itself goes back to 1971. So it doesn't get used that often, but it's not such a rarity as I have researched it further, in that, for example, public school systems use this fairly regularly as another mechanism by which to bond matters. So while we look at this as being particularly for one project, it also can have value for the county's involvement in other Michigan City bonding projects. The commission itself is formed of 3 people. There's an appointment from the Michigan City Mayor, Mayor Perry, for Attorney Chris Willoughby. The Michigan City Council has appointed councilperson Tracy Tillman. And in my conversations with Councilperson Keel and President Rosenbaum, they have indicated that they would like to appoint Mark Yagelski, which obviously is your discretion. But from a personal viewpoint, I welcome it because I like Mark. So.
Do we have a motion?
There's one. There's one.
There's a motion and a second already. So you've got down who made the motion, you got the second.
I don't know.
You made the motion.
Because he's the only one lives in Michigan City.
And
I believe I.
It wasn't me. Okay, thank you. Mr. Novak made the second. I just want to make sure. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Mark, thank you.
Mark, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We move on to number 6, Community Crossings Commitment Letter. Mitch Bishop, if you wouldn't mind coming up, so we can just quickly explain this.
Good evening, Council. I'm here for my annual commitment letter to apply for a NERC's Community Crossing Grant, which is opening July 1st, and I believe closing the last day of July. This is my annual letter I come for as part of the grant application. It's basically our commitment to pay 50% of the project cost as a requirement of the Community Crossing Grant. This year, we're looking to replace 43 road segments, roughly 19 miles of center line road around the Fish Lake community, both upper, lower Fish Lake, and some of the surrounding county roads, I believe 925, 875 east, 700 east, and 400 south. You have any questions regarding it?
I just wanted to make a statement that it's for $1 million.
Yep.
The crossing grant is so that we can receive free $1 million.
Up to $1 million.
Up to $1 million. But our project is over $2 million, so therefore we are looking for that full $1 million.
Right. Every year I try to at least go up to $2 million, so we get the maximum amount of the grant. These are estimates, these are conservative too. They'll probably be a little bit lower than right now. I got 2.3 on those 43 segments, but there's a good chance that it'll be a little lower than that when it's actually bid out.
We need a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion in a couple seconds. Any discussion?
To clarify, this is a motion. To clarify, this is a motion of support right now, correct?
Motion for a letter.
To sign a letter to commit the county that we would fund the project if we are receive the funding. This is done every year so that we get,
Yep.
And I do come back to, if we do receive the funding, I will come back to you.
Perfect.
For
Thank you.
appropriation.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mitch.
Number 7, we have
Motion to table.
a motion to table. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say
Does Mr. Yagelski want it tabled, or since it's him who's talking about it?
yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes, sir.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay, motion is tabled. So please.
Hey,
put
Mr.
that on the-
President?
Yes.
Is Mrs. Grammarosa still at the meeting yet?
She's outside right now.
She's in a conversation. She'll be back in a moment.
We need to make sure that the commissioner, this is on PNC, right? PNW?
But we're not talking, it's tabled. We're not talking
It's
about it.
tabled, so you'll have to take that up privately. I know what you want to say.
I'm sorry, did I miss, I'm at home waiting here. What was that number 7?
Number
We're on
7.
Item 7.
You were number 7 to discuss recent changes at Purdue University
We need
Northwest.
to get that up. The reason why I asked this up, would you please, when she gets back to the meeting, have her get that on agenda? I asked last time. They have not put that on our commissioner's agenda yet.
Okay. We will definitely do that. Okay?
Thank you.
Number 8 came up, and this may not be on, it was not posted, is consider changing the date of the September County Council meeting. It is currently, I believe, the 24th of September.
25th.
25th of September, which is the start of the AIC conference in French Lick. Going there and getting back here for the meeting is a little difficult. I don't care if we had a private airplane. It's been suggested that we change the date. It's always easier to try and I think for some of us to keep it on a Monday, but we can move it anywhere you want. I have a suggested date of the following Monday, which is October 2nd. And the reason for pushing it back rather than forward is because at the beginning of the month, we have a holiday. And if you've never been through the appropriations process and then going out to do notice, it gets very condensed when there's a holiday. So therefore, by pushing, and we're only going 2 days into the next month, so that's my suggestion. If anybody else has a better suggestion, please say so. Or if you want to table it to the next meeting, we can table it.
I think moving is a good idea. 25th is also Yom Kippur for anyone who practices that faith.
Okay, so we would need a motion, I believe, to change the meeting to a date. Would anybody like to entertain that motion?
Motion to move the September meeting from the 25th to October 2nd.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. We now move on to appropriations, transfers, and requests. LaPorte County Prosecutor's Office. A request to transfer funds from the unappropriated fund 2500 to the prosecutor pretrial diversion and deferral fund 2501 to cover appropriated funds in the amount of $171,295.93.
I have a question for our attorney.
You can ask me, but I have no idea because I don't understand what this says.
Okay.
But if you can ask the question.
My question is this excess funds?
I don't think so. I have no idea. I request transfer funds from unappropriated fund.
Well, unappropriated.
That means there's no, I don't know.
Mr. Fake?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Rosenbaum. So as far as I'm aware, just to give a brief overview, all the funds from traffic tickets and pretrial diversion agreements are deposited into the 2500 account, which is the unappropriated funds. So when in the 2501 account, which is our claims and for the person running our pretrial diversion program and infraction deferral, for that employee, all the necessary costs, the funds are transferred every year or at segmented times from the unappropriated into the 2501 because those funds are already appropriated. So the funds that are being moved are not any excess or anything. It's just moving the funds from 2500 to 2501 to cover the already appropriated amounts, no additional appropriations. And as far as I'm aware, this is a yearly process or as needed to make sure that the balance in 2501 is sufficient to cover the already approved appropriations. So it's not an additional appropriation. It's 2023 appropriations that have already been that were done last budget year.
So, Mr. Fagan, just so I understand, this is the money that was budgeted at the budget hearing in order to support the staff that runs the PTD program.
Correct.
So the money's already been appropriated and accounted for.
So do we need to?
Well, and that's what I don't understand, why it hasn't been, why it's still there. I don't recall, but it doesn't.
Would someone from the auditor's office like to weigh in?
That's what the account's for.
It's unappropriated, so when it's unappropriated, it has to be appropriated. So the transfer has to be approved by the council.
But through the budgets, we budgeted it.
It was a line item.
Budgeted in 2501, but not in 2500. So it has to be transferred. The money's in 2500. Just what he said was accurate.
On a side note, Mr. Fagan, if you could get with, you could even get with Guy DiMartino, your ordinance regarding this fund that.
We've been working on it. We've
Great.
had
Never mind.
some discussion.
Great,
Yep,
great,
thank you.
I just like to get that tied up. All right.
Okay, so is there a motion? Now that we understand it a little better?
I don't think we do. I don't think we need a motion, but.
I know that you're being put on the spot because wasn't clear. And since this was already budgeted, that this was, I mean, we do something similar to this, if I remember, in the recorder's office. And we've never been asked to transfer the money because the recorder's office gets paid from her.
Right, but that's their money, right?
Yeah.
So this is, so just going back to the budget process, it's my understanding when you're looking at the pretrial diversion funds, you have an amount that they come and you all budget for the upkeep and support of that office, so it's self-funded. And whether it's 198,000 or wasn't it something like that, Mr. Fagan, 198,000 or 298,000 or whatever, if it was budgeted, is it not appropriated? So that's where I don't understand. If it needs to be done, I mean, no harm, no foul. Just they want you to make a vote on it.
I'll make a motion to transfer.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. Moving down to LaPorte County Parks Department, requesting additional appropriation from Riverboat 1191, Wind Tax 4220, or ARP 8950, or 8951, we should just be using 8951, for the purchase of a tractor for $38,800. This is to replace another tractor, and the Highway Department has requested the other tractor.
Motion to approve out of ARP.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second out of ARP funds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we have to do a roll call?
Appropriation, yes.
Let me add to I'd also like to include, just so we don't have to vote again, the request to spend for park non-reverting fund for seasonal employees for $3,000. I'd like to include that in my motion.
We have that included?
Second.
Okay, so that's fully included in the motion is to take care of both things under the Parks and Rec. A roll call, please.
Councilman Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilman Keel.
Aye.
Councilman Karanka.
Aye.
Councilman Mullenhour.
Aye.
Councilman Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Councilman Yagelski.
Aye.
Councilman Novak.
Aye.
7 ayes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Moving on to LaPorte County Extension Office, requesting a transfer from the General Fund Second Deputy Budget 10114 to purchase equipment 41006 for the purchase of a copier, $8,698.99.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those hearing none, we call a roll call.
Is it transfer?
It's good for transfer.
Okay.
Yep, with
All
transfer,
right.
you're good.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. LaPorte County Redevelopment Commission, requesting additional appropriation from LIT Economic Development, or ARP, for the Kingsbury Trestle Bridge, not to exceed $600,000. Mr. Reardon, do you want to just come up and just,
Quick refresher.
it's just a refresher, it should have been done last month, we missed it.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, this fund would be reimbursed through the READY grant, and the contractor would like to get started. This helps facilitate the project. We can get it done in 2023. And as soon as the requisite amount of paperwork is provided to the forum, they'll reimburse in up to 60 to 120 days. So this will help move the project along faster. And also as a safety measure, the county would be reimbursed the actual expenditure should the rail car accounts not amount to the repayment. So and that has been already agreed to by Mr. Ed Lindborg and Mr. Jim Carroll, both operators in the park.
Motion to approve with when the money's repaid, that it goes back into the LIT economic development.
Second, and can you clarify just roughly how long it would take for us to get
Not
reimbursed?
more than 3 years.
That's the agreement between Liborg and Carroll is 3 years, and gave them a timeline that was consistent with what they had agreed to. So this has to do with moving this along.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilman Keel,
Aye.
Councilman Rosenbaum,
Aye.
Councilman Mullenhour,
Aye.
Councilman Cunningham. Aye. Councilman Yagelski,
Aye.
Councilman Novak,
Aye.
and Councilman Karanka.
Aye.
7 ayes.
Thank you. Moving on, LaPorte County Community Corrections requesting additional appropriation from Lit Public Safety, Riverboat, Wind Tax, or ARP for body cameras, $39,288.69.
Motion approved, and I have a question.
Okay.
We have a motion. Can we just get a second first?
Second.
Out of which fund, please? Lit.
LIT.
Okay, the Lit Public Safety. Thank you.
So my question is, are these similar to the ones that the sheriff's using?
They are similar, but they are not the same brand. The sheriff's has I guess they're a more integrated system that we didn't need.
You don't need all the bells and whistles,
All the bells and
so to
whistles,
speak.
no.
Okay, all right. Took care of that. Thank you.
Did you reach out to multiple firms to get estimates or quotes on this?
Yes, and I also reached out to some individuals from the Sheriff's Department and also the Juvenile Service Center Director, Deion Campbell, and they directed me to which one they felt was the best.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Keel,
Aye.
Councilman Yagelski,
Aye.
Councilman Mullenhour,
Aye.
Councilman Cunningham. Aye. Councilman Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Councilman Novak.
Aye.
Councilman Karanka.
Aye.
7 ayes.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you for being here. Appreciate that very much. LaPorte County Sheriff's Department requesting additional appropriation from Lit Public Safety, Riverboat, Wind Tax, or ARP for body-worn cameras, $114,545.
Good evening, Councilman Ron Heek, Sheriff. That's for all the extra bells and whistles. That's why ours is more. No, that's obviously ours is because we carry a lot more body cameras. We do carry a different style that's integrated with our Interact reporting system that we were, I believe, here last month to pay the bill on that. So this is payment number 3 of a 5-year program that we started several years ago.
And could you remind us during budget hearing the next year's amount?
I would love to, absolutely. There's others that we'll be discussing about as well, too.
I appreciate that, so we can try and get more into the budget process.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to
Second.
approve and a second.
Is that
LIT, yes.
Thank you very much for, I was just going there. Anyway, that's good. Any further discussion, please?
A quick question, are your cameras activated when the door opens, they get out of the car?
Absolutely. There are several different things that can activate the cameras, whether
That's a
we can
big difference from what they would need at community corrections.
Guns come out of
turn the
the
lights on the car. We can actually put a geo fence around certain addresses that will activate the camera if they get within that geo fence. We can
Excellent.
automatically activate the cameras for certain call types as well, too.
Just out of curiosity, do you have a policy in place for if someone were to request body cam footage?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Just wondering.
Is there a jail fence around my house?
Worse.
He's not at liberty to discuss where they are? Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilman Yagelski,
Aye.
Councilman Mullenhour,
Aye.
Councilman Cunningham,
Aye.
Councilman Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Councilman Karanka,
Aye.
Councilman Novak,
Aye.
Councilman Keel.
Aye.
7 ayes.
Thank you.
Thank you. LaPorte County Superior Court 4, requesting additional appropriation from Riverboat, Wind Tax, or ARP. Budget for Drug Court. Now, the original ask was for $38,881.52. However, in further review, this can come out of opioid funds. So but there is a need for cash to cover the July cost. And that amount is $9,720.08. So we are looking to cover only $9,720.08. For the month of July, we will put this on the appropriations to come out of the opioid funds, and next month for the remaining balance. So I need.
Motion to approve $9,720.08 out of ARP.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any?
And part of my motion would be in the remaining balance would come on next month's meeting with the opioid advertised under the opioid fund.
Thank you.
Remaining balance.
So we'll put that into the motion, please. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilman Novak.
Yes.
Councilman Keel.
Aye.
Councilman Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Councilman Yagelski.
Aye.
Councilman Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilman Mullenhour.
Aye.
And Councilman Karanka.
Aye.
7 ayes.
Thank you.
Okay, this is coming out of the LaPorte County Auditor, and it's primarily for lit public safety issues. Requesting additional appropriations from lit public safety for poll raises approved during last year's budget hearings, $400,000. Sheriff's Merit Program, $1 million. $100,000. Trying to put them two together. The reason for it is that we have to wait till we get the money to appropriate this year. We were not able to budget last year for whatever reason, and so therefore we're trying to get all of the costs in a timely manner and continue to fund, first cover payroll and then start funding the retirement fund. What would we like to do?
Motion to approve both of those items on a public safety lit.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilman Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilman Yagelski.
Aye.
Councilman Mullenhour.
Aye.
Councilman Keel.
Aye.
Councilman Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Councilman Novak.
Aye.
And Councilman Karanka.
Aye.
7 ayes.
So the next one, we believe might have been done in the past, but we've been asked to just do this. It's requesting additional appropriations from, where did we take this money from?
ARP.
In the past. So requesting additional appropriations, I'm not going to change it for anything else, out of ARP only. For Stepping Stone Shelter, second donation, we'd split that up to $75,000 and $75,000. So this is the second one. And then the employee mid-year bonus is the final payment, not to exceed $675,000.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve
Second,
and a second.
with a comment. I don't believe we needed to reappropriate this time. I think it was good the way it was. And hopefully we can look at things just to make sure, but better to be safe than sorry.
Appropriations are constrained to the fiscal year that they're approved in. After that, they need to be either encumbered at the end of the year or.
It never left the account. It never left the account. I agree with you in those aspects, but I disagree with it on this one. So just duly respect.
Okay, so we have any other comment? Hearing none, roll call please.
Councilman Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilman Mullenhour.
Aye.
Councilman Keel.
Aye.
Councilman Novak.
Aye.
Councilman Yagelski.
Aye.
Councilman Karanka.
Aye.
And Councilman Rosenbaum.
Aye.
7 ayes.
LaPorte County Board of Commissioners requesting additional appropriations from Riverboat, Wind Tax, or ARP. Workman's compensation payment number 3 of 4, which was due in April, $228,079. And on workman's compensation issue payment number 4 of 4, $228,079 for a total $456,158. The second payment is not due until August, but if we fund it now, we won't have to worry about being late and having any insurance issues. This particular insurance has gone up significantly, and so this was not. We also have an issue in the insurance funds, our premiums are due, most of them are due in the first half of the year, or like in the first 7 months, and therefore there's not enough funds sometimes to carry it, even though we know that we are going to get rebates and other refunds that will eventually go back into the account to carry and cover things at the end of the year. So this is a short-term measure, and we're looking to do a better budgeting.
You gonna put the other one in there too?
I wasn't planning because I was trying to keep workman's, but if you'd like to, we can also include county auto insurance policy as the request, but that's up for the motion.
It's up to.
Motion to approve all three out of our.
Second.
Question.
Yes.
So I don't mind the comment being made that we don't have the money, but that's not better budgeting. We don't have the money. I don't care what you budget out of, you won't have enough money. That's the second time I've heard this point. I don't understand the comment.
You don't understand my comment?
If we don't have the money and we budget it, what's the difference? Is that better budgeting?
I think we need to look at it better when we do the budgeting at the end of July, yes.
If we don't have the money, we don't have the money.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I'm just looking to make sure next year we have the money.
That's ideal, but apparently we didn't. But it's not bad budgeting.
I guess I would just express the concern that ARP funds are one time only. Once we run out of those, they're done.
Oh, good point. Yeah, really good point.
How many more bills are we expecting to get for insurance this year? Because we should probably be keeping that in the back of our mind as we're going forward.
So right now, there's an additional 200 and change that is due, but there's $235,000 in an account that can be used. It's part of the refunds that have been coming in. There will be additional refunds each quarter, so I believe that it'll be coming in July. We're taking care of for the next several months. I do not have the sheet with me, but we do have a complete listing from the insurance company on what there is, and obviously we're gonna have 2 more payments of workman's comp, but we should have the funds in there by the time those bills come up.
Mr. Keel, also at the end of the year, there's always issues with the insurance and potential claims out there because of the SIR, so there'll probably be another payment regarding that at the end of the year.
Does anyone have a rough idea of how much we might expect to spend throughout the rest of the year?
I don't. As to that issue, I don't know that you do, because you don't know when cases are going to resolve and when the SIRs come up.
Right.
Yeah.
Commissioner Grammarosa looks like she wants to tell us.
I'm asking you to come up because she may have the numbers I don't have on me.
Well,
I
yeah. And, Connie Grammarosa, Commissioner. Me and Mike sat down with the insurance agents, and they came in and they gave us a full list. So like, there's 2 payments of $400 that can be paid. What we did was we tallied up all the little ones, and those are the ones that we can pay. For Mr. Karanka and for Mr. Keel, you wouldn't necessarily know this, but Mr. Yagelski, when I left the council last year, we left with a deficit, knowing Diane Gonzalez had came up here for the commission and said they were close to $500,000 in the HO and insurance policies. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that was something that we had carried over from last year. So when we came into the new year, we were already behind. Now this, and Mr. Rosenbaum is correct. The $228,079, one of them is already overdue. That's already overdue, and I can't pay it. And so that one is going to end up getting paid late. It hasn't been canceled, but it is late. And then the second one isn't due until August. So regardless, we don't put enough money into this account, and it's something that for sure we're going to have to come during budgeting hearing, and we're going to have to get it fixed. But this is something that we've been struggling since the beginning of the year, trying to play catch up. And thank you for coming and sitting down with the insurance agents, and they kind of really did give us a good explanation. And if everybody else would want me to send you a chart, I can definitely send you that chart tomorrow.
That would be great.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Mr. President. Mr. Graham, if you remember correct, because you were on it, in November, I asked for a meeting. In December, I asked for a meeting. In January, I asked for a meeting. We finally got together in February. We still have not formed that committee to try to help straighten some of our insurance matters out. That was back since November. I addressed it back in November. We finally had our first meeting. If I'm not corrected, Mr. President, it was February. And then we still have not met yet. You know what meeting we're talking about.
Right, the joint session, the executive
more.
session. Yeah, we can do that. I mean, we can have an executive session about that again, and we can talk about, I mean, because now that we've changed the insurance carriers, there are definitely some room there now that we can kind of work with some of the plans that you had. So it's definitely something that's workable right now at this point, Mr. Yagelski.
I don't disagree, but I'm saying that was since November. So I did bring it up in November.
So then perhaps me and Mr. Rosenbaum can sit down and we can plan for that and try to have another meeting.
Okay.
At some point, if you should get numbers together or estimates of what we think we might be spending on insurance around the rest of the year, I'd appreciate seeing those just so
Yeah.
we have an idea of what we're
And then
expecting.
we're going to bring it to the budget hearing as well. So we're going to have the whole lineup of exactly what we're paying out, what we potentially think that we're bringing in. And I'm going to base it on the last 6 months because I can't go back. One of the problems that we have is we have it in 2 different accounts. And so we put certain certain money into one account and we're pulling out of 2 different accounts. And I don't know if it would be easier if we were able to combine those 2 different accounts. And that's something that perhaps, when we have this executive session, we can talk about and we can get it together.
Yeah, I can have a separate conversation rather than bore everybody on why there's a need for the 2. But we can go forward on any continued further conversation. There was there was a request. We tabled something regarding PNC, and it was mentioned that we need the commissioners to discuss it first there. So if you can think about putting it
Add it to your agenda.
Okay.
I might have missed that one. So
No, you were unfortunately you were unfortunately out of the room.
send me a text tomorrow
And so-
and let me know what we're
Get in
supposed
touch
to
with
get.
Mr. Yagelski.
Okay, I can do that.
Thank you. All right, sorry, I didn't mean to violate anything there. We're in the middle of talking about the insurance. We have a first and we have a second. And did we, I don't even recall, I don't think we did the roll call yet, so if we'd be so kind, do the roll call. It's for a total of $626,158.
Councilman Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Councilman Novak.
Aye.
Councilman Karanka.
Aye.
Councilman Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilman Yagelski.
Aye.
Councilman Keel.
Aye.
Councilman Mullenhour.
Aye.
7 ayes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next item, requesting additional appropriations from Emergency Reserve Fund 1186 for LaPorte County Complex flood renovation. There are individual items here listed. Galvanized water line, not to exceed $596,000. Replacement of hot water heating, not to exceed $486,898. Makeup air unit replacement, not to exceed $284,815. Installation of galvanized water lines of not to exceed $103,000, and alarm system components for $258,750. This was many times this was discussed in our workshop that we had a couple months ago, and just in case there was any questions, I've asked Mr. Skiat to speak to us, but I don't know if we need any preference from anybody else first. Do you want to?
I'm going to do a motion of support. This is a carryover from the favorable vote that we did for the $3 million 3 months ago. So motion to approve
Second.
out of emergency reserve.
We have a motion and a second to approve, and now is there any?
Question.
I'm sorry.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Novak, I'm sorry. So why are we asking for a motion support? Why are we asking?
No.
for a motion?
This is the follow-up from the motion of support we did 3 months ago for the 3 million. Remember the 3 million, not to exceed 3 million?
It was in April.
You're making a motion or a motion support?
A motion.
I'm making a motion to pay this tonight.
Okay, I might have misunderstood. I could have swore you said motion to support. I apologize.
No, I said this goes all the way back to when we originally voted on it as a council
Thank you.
with a motion of support not to exceed 3 million.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Randy.
Sorry.
Okay, so now we're open for discussion. Is there any questions for Mrs. Skiat? Mrs. Skiat provided the information that is on this. Mrs. Skiat informed me that this is based upon the standard rates that the insurance company has approved. It's also based upon the lowered rate on the materials. There is typically a contractor is allowed a certain percentage to secure the materials, and that is lower than the normal for his company, and so that is what these were on. These are all items, as we had discussed in a session, a workshop, that were additional. Some may or may not be additional items that the insurance company may or may not pay for. We wanted to make sure, the reason for that workshop was to make sure the project went forward and that we didn't delay so we could get our people back into the building. And it may be where we may have to fight the insurance, to consider litigation if it's necessary later on. But right now, this is just to keep the project moving forward.
Mr. President, Mr. Novak, I know it's just a minute point, but could you also make that with the motion that any money reimbursement will go back to the emergency reserve fund?
Absolutely.
Thank you for requesting that too.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, because if not, this could take more than a few years to replace this funds back in there. So anyway, we are open for discussion. So is there any further discussion?
Originally, this was presented to us as being a $3 million motion of support and appropriation. What changed? Why is it 1.7 now?
Sure. So there's a couple things. I'm Andy Skiat from LaPorte County Project Management. So I'll answer your question in a second. So first, I'd like to say thank you to everyone. So I view our work here at the county as having 13 bosses or 13 people we answer to, those being the 7 council members, the attorney, the council attorney, Mr. Martino, Mr. Paycheck, and the 3 commissioners. So I'm thankful that there's 2 commissioners here tonight if they want to join the discussion or say something. I don't know, is Mr. Merzinski on there?
He was.
Oh, well, they're all 3 here, so very much. So I'm happy that everyone's here. I don't have the packet that I handed out for myself. I didn't know the 2 commissioners were coming, so I handed them one, so that worked out good. No, that's okay. So a couple things. So the first packet that you'll see was when we started our work here, and to me, I'm thankful for the work. We try to do a good job. Not that it is my job to do that, but I've put off personal stuff. I've put off other customers. I've put off other stuff in the office to make this job a priority since day one. I was here myself Christmas Day. I got a text from Commissioner Haney that they might need some help at the complex because there was a flood. I left Marley's family, in fact, during Christmas dinner. I was here myself Christmas Day, the day after Christmas. I've pretty much given up 6 or 7 months of my life to try to make this job a success for everyone. That is my job to do that, so that's what it should be. But there is a billable rate for me as the owner of the company. Just to be clear, I've been involved in this every day. For the month of June, I have not billed 1 hour of my time. For the month of May, I've only billed 5 hours of my time. So in the last 2 months, all the time I've been here, I put in more than 5 hours today alone on this job. I've billed 5 hours total of my time. So in these 2 months. So for me, this is not about the money. This is trying to do the right thing for the county, for the building, and keep the 13 people that I respect as my boss and my superiors happy. So the first item you'll see there, when we started, I asked clearly at the meeting on site with the insurance company, because they were talking about different policy coverages with Mr. Jones from Michigan Insurance. So I said I want to make sure that my bills are itemized correctly and categorized correctly. I said because we got to move stuff to A Street, we got to move stuff to the courthouse, we got to move stuff to the Hyler building. I said, so if those items are going to be requested to be broken down or separated out of different accounts, please give me that now, because we could do that hindsight, but it would be much more thorough, much more accurate, much more timely if we created subcategories and did that ahead of time. So I asked for explanation of your coverage to make sure that I had my paperwork proper, and you'll see the third bullet point there that they made it clear that your blanket policy, which was the major account, covered ordinance and law code upgrades. So I think there's some representatives here from the building department and the inspection department, but I can't speak for their behalf. But it is clear and it is in writing that your policy in the major blanket does cover code upgrades. Secondly, I included the email from your carrier with the rates that were approved, their email approving those rates in writing, and I copied the rate sheets that were sent on that email for all subcontractors and LaPorte County Project Management in that email. And just to be clear, I am the owner of LaPorte County Project Management that was hired at the Commissioners Reorganization meeting this year to manage the project, and I am also the owner of Marquis Electric, and that's what my involvement was December 25th. So December 25th, we came out as the electrical contractor due to the standing water to make sure that the water that was on the floors for the plugs and the lights was turned off in safe and appropriate manner. So when I did contracting, general contracting, project management, I did a lot of that successfully as an electrical contractor through Marquis Electric. We still have that ongoing, but sometimes that would be questioned, what's an electrical contractor doing project management, even though we did that successfully. So then I opened a project management company, and now people say, well, now how come you own two companies? So just to be clear and on record, I want to stand here at the podium and tell you that I am the principal of both those companies. So that is the second packet there, that all those rates were approved for each vendor in writing by the insurance company. The third information packet there, which I'm assuming everyone here has, is the building commissioners were put on notice. They had determined it took a little bit, but they weren't sure at these initial meetings. Your carrier Chubb had requested some policy information for code compliance, because that is bullet point 3 under your blanket policy. So they wanted to know the jurisdiction, because the building is owned by LaPorte County, but it falls within city limits. So Floyd Merzinski from the city of LaPorte got together with LaPorte County, and he put in writing that he would do joint jurisdiction, and he cited the code for that to where the inspections could happen jointly between the city of LaPorte, because this building obviously resides in city limits, with county inspectors having jurisdiction also, because it is a county-owned building, so they're doing both. So the commissioners were put on notice that the HVAC system, due to the flood on December 25th, is going to be condemned and would be condemned, and they can speak on that here. They provided a letter that if work doesn't commence. The fourth, I guess, pamphlet that I handed out there, which we could just have a discussion item, that's for the water line. So we did some galvanized water. There's galvanized water lines in the building. That's one of the points there to consider funding that to replace those lines. The health department was on the 4th floor for quite some time. They have had no hot water. They have to let that water run for at least 30 minutes to get any hot water due to the old galvanized lines, the sludge in them and stuff. They have no flow. So that's where they do all the blood draws, the blood labs, the STD testing, and they did not have adequate means to sanitize themselves or their equipment due to the flow. And so then we took some water samples, and there's 6 tests there. The first page is we tested the incoming water as close to the supply as we could get to test the city. That test came back perfectly fine. The first test, I put them in order worst to least. So the second page, which would be the first test, is a fail. So the water coming out of those galvanized lines on that area failed. The second and third page have elevated levels, but they did pass, but they are concerned. And the fourth and fifth page, they also passed. So now back to your question, Councilman Keel. Sorry for the long answer.
I appreciate the history.
When this originally happened, There was some discussions with Chubb and your legal counsel, which they should probably speak on, but you asked me, so Mr. DiMartino can cut me off anytime, about the coverage. So, they know some of these items are covered, but we have to work, we hope to continue work based on the authority having jurisdiction, saying work must continue due to the findings. And in that time, there's going to be a gap possibly when insurance would pay for some of these items versus the money that we were owed. So most of the contractors on this job were local, and not in the sense of we're owned by a corporation, but we have maybe 3 or 4 staff that are here working local. We're true local. So like New Tech, obviously I'm Marquis and LCPM and others. We're not corporate owned. So, and that's not an excuse either. I'm just telling the story. So our money that we're operating on is not by a big corporation. That's our money. So we're making payroll every week. We're paying for materials every week. We're trying to buy local to keep those people paid. So we're trying to ask for money to bridge the gap between the money that we're owed for work that's done and the funding that Chubb has provided the county. So that's what that money for. So originally we were estimating, I think I sent Councilman Rosenbaum, the president, 2 emails for they were like 2.9 million based on what those original estimates were. So the money that's on the budget is what was chosen to be pulled off there.
No, I just want to add the 200,000 that was pulled off, that would have get us to right to that number, was for the windows which were not going to be part of this.
Correct.
So we felt we can deal with that another day, that it wasn't as urgent to deal with as this is. So that's why it was pulled off.
Yep. And the money for like all the water lines and the hot water heating, not all that money would even, so we are working, there is no lump sum money. So like and to answer the commissioner's question earlier, I don't have a contract. So my contract is strictly based on the emergency declaration that was my understanding was signed, and the what's the first meeting called, the commissioners meeting? Reorganization meeting when I was hired. So if you're unhappy with my work, or if you feel that we're not doing a good job or something's wrong, all you have to ask me to do is leave, and I'll leave at any time. It would be great if the auditor would pay us for our work to date, but I am not under contract with you. There is no contract to be voided. You are free to terminate me, any one of the 13 bosses I have at any time. So the money that's on the agenda, we don't need that lump sum.
Questions? We'll go ahead then.
We don't need that lump sum because no vendor here, no company is working lump sum contract. The only work that's taking place on this job, it's all time and material, and all that work is based on the rates and the material markups that are approved by your carrier, Chubb, on those letters. So we send a bill every month. For one, we do a daily update. We've done that since the beginning. So every day we send to your legal counsel, to the carrier, an email with what vendors are on site every day, exactly how many personnel they have on site every day, and what they worked on that day. And that allows them to track money because they know how many people are here and they know the rates they agreed to. And that also allows them to track progress because they can see every day in writing what's getting done. So anytime if the carrier has a problem with monetary or scope, they see that every day, they can step in and stop it, because they were told also at the on-site meetings that the only agreement is based on the emergency declaration. So then every month everybody has to do a daily timesheet that's signed, and all our vendors have to provide material invoices. So every month we do a bill, we copy all that, we submit that to the carriers. Hired a third-party consultant. That third-party consultant, their only job is to review my bills and the subcontractors' bills that will in turn get passed on to the carrier.
Who else gets those daily logs besides the person with Chubb?
I don't have my phone.
Myself, Chubb, Ken Driscoll, the person who's doing the auditing for Chubb.
Okay.
For a while there, they were coming to the committee.
For a while, they were going to 25 people.
Right.
And it's just unmanageable.
So then all.
Excuse me for just a minute. Mr. DiMartino, you are now the head of the committee, is that correct? Or you're the communication source with Chubb?
I'm not the head of the committee. I'm just the legal representative of the county in regards to dealing with Chubb.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So going back, and I appreciate all of
All our bills then are they're between 250 and 400 pages every month, and they're every timesheet, every hour, every receipt. We give a copy to the county. I keep a copy for our records, and we send a copy to Chubb's consultant.
Thank you. And I just want to say that I think I can say we all appreciate the dedication that you've put in towards this project. Going back to my original question, and I really do appreciate all the history and the lead up to this, but how do we go from 3 million to 1.7 million? What was in the 3 million?
It's not 1.7 to 3. It's if you add the two numbers together, I believe it's just under 3 million.
Originally,
it's just under 3 million.
Funding.
Look at both lines.
Same thing.
So all of these items, including the contractor's invoices for April and
Yes.
May, including that.
Yeah.
So we
originally part of the 3.
But I don't recall that being brought up in our workshop in April. How would we have brought up an estimated amount for billings that were going to be in May that we had no reason to believe that the insurance company wouldn't pay at that time?
It was an estimate. It was a.
But why would we plan on paying something if we don't know, if we didn't have any reason to believe the insurance company wouldn't pay for that?
You see, so this is part of the disconnect. The insurance company fronted $1.5 million. You have $1.5 million sitting in account. The insurance company has said, number one, until you exhaust that money, we're not giving you additional monies. And the insurance company is now saying we still haven't seen the building inspector information that we just started getting. So that's really the rub with the carrier. But Terry, the adjuster for the carrier, has said you haven't expended the $1.5 million yet.
And that 1.5 million was paid to us.
Was in advance.
But when was it paid to us?
January.
In March.
Well, they started. Well, hold on. They told us they were going to pay us, and it took a while, and then that's when they paid the $500,000 to LaPorte County Management and to ServPro.
So if we knew in March that we had 1.5 million sitting in our insurance account that we could use to pay those bills, why would we need to do an additional appropriation out of the emergency reserve fund for an amount over $1 million when we have 1.5 million sitting in an account?
We only have 605,000 roughly right now.
So some of the 1.5 has been expended?
So it's two things, I sent you 2 emails that I originally sent to Councilman Rosenbaum that with the figures that add up to that money. Just now, yeah, sorry, that's the best way for me to get it to you. I can't print it there. So, and there was actually 1 million, I'm going off memory here, 1,971,000 that was fronted by the carrier for construction, and an additional 250,000 that was fronted for county contents. And again, this is just based off the meetings and sitting there. So, it originally the first check that your carrier cut, Chubb, was a 2-party check. So we started work December 25th. It was now the middle March 14th, I think, is the day they cut the first check. So Chubb had promised one in a Zoom call that they were going to send money, and then once other time they said they were going to send money. That never happened. So we had worked all January, all February. We were into March, and December was a lot of overtime when it first happened, and there was still no money. So the first invoice I think was 471,000, and I think it was March 14th that Chubb cut a 2-party check for that one, payable to LaPorte County government and LaPorte County project management. So we got that check so that we didn't have to wait for the money to go through the county. How now for bills to get paid? Chubb said that is not their standard policy. Chubb said that they would do that because they understood it had been a long time for payment, and payment needed to commence so that work could continue. So then after that, then they sent another $1.5 million to the county to go in the flood fund or the complex fund, I don't know that on the auditor's end, to use to pay the construction bills, and another 250,000 that was to be used for the county stuff. So like at the sheriff's department, they had a iWave or iRecord for like when they do, I don't know what it's called when they're Yeah, so that was $48,000 or $49,000, and then there was another device that they needed that was almost $50,000. So out of that $250,000 that was fronted for the county to continue operations, $100,000 thereabouts was gone from that right away for equipment that the sheriff.
So,
needed to
so the
continue
total
operation.
to date received into this fund from Chubb has been how much money?
It'd be $1,750,000, I think, plus
Correct.
$471,000 two-party check payable to my company.
And we use that to pay your December, January, February, March billings, correct?
That's correct.
So now we still have enough money left over, 600,000 roughly? Is that correct? Okay. That would be enough to pay your April billings,
April
right?
billing, correct.
So if we knew that we had this and we paid off those bills and back in March we received this $1.5 million, why would there have been money baked into that $3 million for something we had money to pay for? Why are we seeking an
The
additional?
$3 million was a not to exceed. It was a,
No, that's not answering the question.
No, I can
it was
tell
a
you.
not to exceed.
The money was because, and I think it was April 4th in writing. They had done that before that. Verbally at the meetings. I think on April 4th, Chubb said, we're not disputing what you're saying is covered as far as code. Like, so there's two things. So the fire alarm. So there's one fire alarm panel in the basement. That same fire alarm panel controls the complex, 911, the sheriff's department, the offices, and where the inmates are housed. So you'd have to ask Mr. Nagus or Mr. Pollan to come up here and speak on the fire alarm.
Hold on. So we'll get to that. So
No, this all goes part of it. So like the fire alarm, based on our, meaning the complex flood team project, based on our discussion with the inspectors, which would be the city of LaPorte and the county, about the fire alarm, the mechanical pipes, and the fire alarm, mechanical pipes, and the galvanized water lines, we knew that there was going to be work there. So Chubb said we're not disputing that work, but we're asking for just articles and code sections from the building department so that we can say that it falls under bullet point 3, ordinance and law, code compliance. So we didn't know how fast because they're out doing inspections all day and they're busy, meaning the building departments could provide that information to Chubb, how fast Chubb would review that information and consult with your legal counsel. So in the meantime, if we're continuing to work, we should be paid for that work while the building department collects that information, presents it to Chubb, and Chubb reviews that with your legal counsel to make that part of the claim.
So we may be paid for that $1.7 million worth of items, which included the HVAC, the fire alarm system, and the galvanized pipes, correct?
You
we
said
may
mayor.
be paid. We
That
may
would
be
be up
paid.
to your inspectors to answer that, because they're the ones that are going to say if it falls under code. If it falls under code, bullet point 3 says it's covered.
Okay.
So Mr. Keel, I think from what I recall, the numbers that were brought up at the workshop regarding the actual materials may have been higher because those were estimated numbers, and I think that they were asked to go back and get the exact numbers for the pipes. So from what and I don't have it in front of me, I think from what I recall, the piping might have been initially quoted at like $1 million or a little over $1 million, but then these numbers here are actual numbers from the vendors.
Okay.
So I think that's part of the issue.
Just to be clear, the items that are on our additional appropriations or agenda here, that was for contractors' invoices for April and May, those were never included in the $3 million motion of support that we approved before. Those were never part of it. They were part of it.
I don't know that. I don't recall.
Was that presented to us in that workshop meeting?
I wasn't there.
Yeah,
There was conversation about covering some shortfalls with the insurance company, the $3 million.
Okay, can we move on?
Building department?
Can we? So I don't know if we need that. So, I think he's answered the question as best as he can at this point. We've had the attorney add in. Do you have another question? I'm not trying to cut you off. I just would like to move forward.
Yep. My last question, I think, is related to, was this bid or did we receive quotes as part of this process?
We did not.
Are we legally required to?
That's a question that's much more nuanced to have in this open. I would say no. I would say if you want to be 100% sure, you need to litigate the matter so you can get an answer from the court. Because things are nebulous. Because I can tell you that more likely than not, you're getting this money from the carrier. But you might not be getting this money from the carrier in the next 3 months or 6 months, as I've discussed previously. It might be a year or 18 months, because it has to do with the policy interpretation of the language.
In the present,
and that's the rub.
yes, in the present moment, though, we are taking public funds and we're injecting them into the project, correct?
You're going to have to, or you're just going to sit.
And
That's your call.
Absolutely. So if we inject public funds into the project, are we required to either get a bid or a quote? And if not, what statute are we relying on to not need to go out to a bid or a quote process?
You're not relying on a statute.
And doesn't the statute say that if there's an emergency, which we're arguing here, potentially there is one, doesn't it say in the
It was declared an emergency in,
Yes. And the Public Works statute says that when there's an emergency, you get 2 quotes, correct?
It does.
But we didn't get 2 quotes.
When were you going to get to? Now you're asking me questions. Let's put it up to discussion, because since we're talking about issues that everybody's pointing issues, let's talk about ways that we can possibly resolve this. When were you going to get 2 quotes? The insurance company was on site within 10 days of the event. They said that they were doing it. They said that they were going forward. Walls were being torn out. And then you come to a point where the walls are torn out, and then you have these issues with the pipes and all these things. At what point do you stop in the middle of this and bid it? It's your guys' call. At what point do you do it, and how do you go about doing it? I don't know. Some pipes are torn out already. How do you get vendors to come in the middle of a job and bid it? How?
I think some of this hinges around what constitutes an emergency and when does the emergency end. And I think we are interpreting it right now that the emergency ends when the entire project is done. And that might be questionable. Perhaps there's actually 2 different emergency components to this. The declaration of emergency that was passed back in December, or signed by the 2 presidents, and I believe subsequently passed, that relies on things in Title 10, which has to do with emergency management and disaster law.
It wasn't a Title 36 emergency that was declared at that time.
I think the language of the...
It was not. It was Title 10.
Okay.
Yes. It was not.
And so that could arguably allow for it to be done without any bidding or quote process. But at some point, that emergency ended when there was no longer an imminent risk to life or health or safety. That ended at some point. And then it became an emergency underneath the Public Works project, which was more broad and allows us to focus on trying to get people back into the building more quickly, perhaps. If that's the case, then we needed to get 2 quotes at some point. But we've kind of blurred this into a single continuum where we just finished an emergency and we kept going into maintenance. And so that's kind of where my issue is here. There are other contractors in this county, and this is meant as no disrespect to you, but they ought to have an opportunity to bid on large public works projects.
So this is my recommendation to the board. Stop the project and go through your quotes and go through your bids, and then you all will have to deal with whatever happens. Either that, or you go forward and you get a declaration from a court to tell you what you've done. Those are your 2 options. You can't have the folks working there and then come in and get bids. But I don't know that that's the council's decision or the commission's decision. It's the commission's building.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
How do we get bids from someone else? How does someone come in and bid when there's no drawings, there's no plans, there's no 250 that's short linear feet of water line, 3/4? This is what we want bid. We would have to have someone come in and engineer that, correct?
Yeah, I can answer that. It's clear that this is to me, and I'm the building commissioner. I'm not a contractor. I'm a neutral party in this. We are still in the midst of the emergency that was declared, and if there was ever a project that fits the scope of time and material, this is it, and we're still in the middle of it. If we stop this project, if we stop the work and we litigate, and this becomes dormant, then I have to condemn parts of this building and we need to vacate other people out of this building.
Which parts would be condemned? The jail would be condemned, or just the part that was where the complex or the offices were?
Well, it's the HVAC and the fire systems are all one, so we would need to start moving out 911, inmates, sheriff, EMS.
And you're comfortable doing that?
If we have to.
When you're dealing with life safety, you don't have a choice. You're either continuing to move forward to fix the problem, or if it stagnates and stops, you're forcing someone's hand to vacate. They're going to be forced to condemn the building.
We already had engineers go through one of our other buildings. I mean, we don't need a repeat of that. Or we're not going to compromise public health and safety for this project. Not going to do it.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Yeo.
So,
sorry.
When you have, I deal with contractors, I think a couple other people on our council also does. A company comes in because they want a chance to make a profit. When the insurance company gives you a rate of, and I'm just going to make it up right now, $50 an hour. Doesn't matter what the number is. So it's $50 an hour. You're going to put in 250, whatever Randy said, 3/4 inch pipe, blah, blah, blah. The numbers are all set. There's really not a bid system that's out there. You've given all the numbers.
It's all time and
Are we going to nickel dime? I'm sorry?
It's all time and material. I agree with you.
I know.
Yeah.
So are we going to nickel dime to try to get somebody else to bid? They don't bid in those. They bid to make a profit. When all three companies, otherwise all three companies can work together and say there's a 3-man bid, and let's all get together and let's negotiate and pay X. We already know what X is. We know the material labor. We know the what we need. So they're not going to. There's no extra money to make off this project. This project is time and material, and the numbers are set by insurance companies. They go down to, because I had a house that burned down. They go down to how many 2x4s, how many nails, how many screws. This is not a system that you're able to sit there and simply go ahead and say, let's make a little bit of money off. I can buy nails cheaper than company B. I can buy 2x4s cheaper than company C. This is set wages, set prices. So I think it's null and void to some of this conversation we're talking about. It's not as if you're going to have a fair bid going out there anyway. The bid's already out there.
Mr. Yagowski, but what Mr. Keel is concerned of, and what I hear in his questions to me, is that should the insurance carrier not pay for some of this work, then it's a public work project and you're using taxpayer money, and because of that, we're constrained by the rules and regulations of the statute. I think that's what I'm hearing, the concern.
But even if we
would change that process is because we agreed there was an emergency. We went through the insurance company. They set the rates. They set the numbers. So it's just like a simple fact that if I take my car in and I got the brakes done, and they call me and says, you know what, your brake line's is deteriorated. I say, well, don't bother putting the brake line in, because I'm gonna bid that out to two other companies, whoever, company A and company B. Just put the brakes on, and then you understand that's what the emergency still is. The brakes were the emergency, but what became a subset of the emergency was the brake line. So it's all inclusive.
Quite arguably, the funds that we've already received, that $1.5 million, it's sitting in the county's bank account. Those are, at the very present moment, public funds, which then require the bid process to take effect. And I guess,
well, it's true.
I guess I don't take a exception to the cost that you guys are charging. I think it's reasonable. I think that the insurance company does a good job making sure that costs are controlled. They have a financial incentive to do it. But there's other reasons to bid projects. One is the fairness to other contractors in the county who deserve to have a chance to participate in public work. The Indiana State Supreme Court had opined an opinion at one point, or in a court opinion at one point, that the public works statute is designed to safeguard the public against fraud, favoritism, graft, extravagance, improvidence, and corruption, and to ensure honest competition for the best work or supplies at the lowest reasonable cost. There's more than one reason to do a competitive process. It's not just cost. The cost has largely been addressed here. It's the other principle that's behind these things. And that's why I feel so passionately about it, is that we have to defend that principle, and it's the law to do so.
Mr. Kill, I think you're 100% right. If this was a project like the courthouse in Michigan City, you give a fair opportunity for everybody to do it. that says this is because of emergency declarations have changed all those. That one quote was for a new project coming in. It wasn't stopped midway through a project, and I'm just going to say, well, the lights, we'll bid the lights out, or we'll bid the 3/4 inch water lines out there. If one doesn't happen, the other, we got to finish the project. The only way that you're going to be successful I believe in your comment is say, close the walls up there, and in 10 years from now, reopen them back up again and bid it the proper way. But right now, we got to get the insurance company going so we can collect our money, because it's going to be a 3-year process. Like our attorney told us, it's going to be a 3-year process. So if there is an alternative, close the walls up right now and fix the immediate problems, and then deal with it 10 years from now.
And I just want to make a point. I absolutely disagree that the emergency is over because we stopped the water from dripping from one floor to the next, and we got the mold out of there, and we got this out of there, and different things. The emergency exists because the fire suppression system is not adequate the way it is, and you've got your housing in the worst sense of occupied housing, confined inmates in there. And if something happens to them, we're responsible for everything there. There's no way for them to get out. There's no fire escapes. There's nothing else. So to have that fire alarm system not working, the emergency continues. Absolutely, it absolutely continues with the water lines, with the water system, with water that we know of in the report that we have here in the building here. That is an emergency in itself. So any one of those things could be another emergency. This is still a continued emergency. It's still part of the project.
I agree with Mr. Novak 100%. And Mr. Jagelski.
Is there any other comment? Hearing none, let's move to a roll call.
I'm thankful either way. I appreciate the work. All I ask is if it's non-favorable, I want to say thank you for the work, and I'm more than grateful for the opportunity myself and all the subcontractors I've had. If it decides to go forward, my main concern is leave me out of
drama.
Thank you.
Not trying to make this drama, and I appreciate my colleagues entertaining my questions.
Yeah.
Okay, roll call, please.
What's the roll call on the entirety?
Motion to pay $1,729,463 to fund the 5 projects not to exceed those, each individually, not to exceed those.
Councilman Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilman Karanka.
Aye.
Councilman Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Councilman Keel.
Nay.
Councilman Jagelski.
Aye.
Councilman Mullenhour.
Aye.
Councilman Novak.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 nay.
Okay. Moving on to the request. So gentlemen, you two, please sit down. Thank you very much for coming up and adding the few moments there. Requesting additional appropriations from Emergency Reserve Fund for LaPorte County Complex Flood Renovation. Contractor's invoice for April, $456,219.77, and contractor's invoices for May estimated at $580,000. We know that it ended up being higher than that, but this is what we had as an estimate at the time, and that's as far as that we can go. We also know that we've spoken about before. So there's a total here of $1,036,219.77. We have also discussed before that there's approximately $605,000. I'm just using a rough number. If you have a better number, we'll use it. But there's roughly sitting in that account that, as we've all agreed upon here and have shared, should be used to pay everything possible first, so that we've depleted all of those funds.
Mr. President?
Yes.
For the record, we have an invoice for the $456,000 that's in my office that is a request from the commissioners to pay from the Complex Flood Renovation Fund that $456,000, which my office approved and authorized today to be paid.
Okay.
So I just, for the record, I'm not trying to.
No, that's okay.
Controversial. I'm
How
just.
much does that leave?
How
much does that leave? You have a ballpark?
580,000.
I think she's
No,
calculating.
no, she's looking at how much is left out of the 605.
$456,000.
And Mr. DiMartino, please.
Just so you all know what else is out there, because I receive emails probably every other week. ServPro has not been paid for months. They've been submitting bills, and they have a national contract with Chubb, and Chubb made them a preferred vendor because they didn't want to pay tradespeople the $100 and some odd hourly rate, and they're paying the ServPro folks $55 an hour rate. And so Mr. Carlton from ServPro has not been paid, and those numbers are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars also. Just so you know
His
that
bills
that's out
going
there.
through us, or are they going straight to
Well,
Chubb?
so this is the deal. I asked him if there was a contract between us and them. And the day when they were called in, there is a contract or an agreement that was signed by the head of facilities at that time. So there is an agreement with them, even though Chubb came in and, negotiated their $55 an hour rate. So just so you know that that's out there.
Okay, so what we've done for appropriations, we've appropriated the 456,000, which to my understanding now is being processed and paid, so that therefore we would not be doing it again, because the only thing that we could do based upon our agenda is for this contractor's invoice for that amount. I'm just want to make sure I'm correct in my.
You're correct, but I just wanted to give you an understanding those aren't the only bills that are in line. That's
No, so even if we have, you have an amount, I'm sorry.
Approximately 154,000 is left after that.
That's gonna, yeah, is left after.
Which could easily be eaten up by ServPro.
Well,
If, again, I don't know if we're responsible for ServPro or if the insurance company was paying them direct. I'm not sure I remembered hearing that answer.
And just so, I don't mean to speak out of turn, but, so ServPro, they subcontracted Nikki, which works for Wessler. So Wessler, she's the industrial hygienist. So we wanted a clear line between ServPro, who did the water mapping and the demo scope, and then Nikki, which works for Wessler, which is the industrial hygienist. We wanted a clear line between the people that are doing the recommended demo scope and the testing versus the contractors. So Nikki we need, because she's the one that clears areas and does testing, and I don't want to speak for them because that's their business, not mine. But if they would receive payment, they would probably come back and help us, and that would be good for everybody's sake, because when we go into an area to do work, Nikki's the one that does all the documentation and the paperwork to say that it's clean, there's no mold, and everything's in order, and she is a sub of ServPro. So it would be nice, if possible, not my place to ask or bring up, but to get them back involved. Correct?
they need to submit a bill then.
Sounds like they have.
I go back to the question. I don't feel interrupted at all. So I go back to my question just for to make sure I have an understanding. Were we paying ServPro out of this 1.5?
Well, ServPro was supposed to be paid out of the monies, but initially, you remember, they were so far behind and they didn't release the check that when they sent the $400,000 to Andy at that time, they also paid
sent money to
ServPro. Yeah.
So we're technically supposed to be using the insurance funds.
We're technically the client of ServPro. I mean, they're our vendor. They've done work for us. We have a signed agreement with them that was signed by the head of facilities. Okay. We don't have a signed agreement with him, but we have a signed agreement with ServPro.
So, taking everything into account, if I may, Mr. President. So, this $456,000 that's off the table right now. There's nothing to discuss at this point because there's a check to be paid. There's $580,000 plus that we're discussing, even though it's counted as a not to exceed here. It sounded like it came in low.
That's all we can do
with discussion. Exactly.
But
that was invoices for the month of May received in June.
That is in work performed in May, billed in June. That's correct.
Okay. And we have outstanding stuff from ServPro that's way outstanding that we need to consider, but it's not on the agenda right now. Is it safe to say we have nothing to discuss at this point, because I don't know what payment terms contractually are for the 580, but we may be within that payment terms contractually?
You're really not even late on any payment. So even the 456 that was for work in April, say we build it mid-May, say it takes a week or whatever to get to Mr. Stables as the auditor. So that's the third week of May. We're now at the third week of June. It's 30 days. So I have 2 bills outstanding. Technically, none of them are late. I've never had a late payment, just with all the drama, as it was said, that's going on. We just wanted to come and have a discussion to know if we were moving forward, and if we did move forward, if we were going to receive payment, because if not, then we had to make another decision. But at this time, we have 2 bills pending, none of which are technically late.
But we also
Then a motion.
not knocking on the door, giving us another check of $1.5 million.
Correct, except for the fact that we are going to be able to comply with their requests for the building information. So,
Is it possible by the time we're here next month for our next meeting that we will have received another check from Chubb?
I'll know exactly where they stand by then. I don't know the receiver check, but I'll know where they stand.
Can the 580 wait till next month?
Absolutely.
And that took care of that?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
Mr. DiMartino, you mentioned earlier that 1.5 million they wanted to see spent. So if we only going to write a check for 456, why would we think they're going to write us another check until we spend the 1.5 million?
The remaining 154.
We still need to spend the 154,000 that Rhonda said approximately is in there.
I know, but that's still not 1 point. So the statement was made.
No. There's only 156,000 left out of the 1.5 after the check is processed that Mr. Stabos just mentioned.
So when will the 156 be paid out?
Well, I mean, that will be up to the auditor's office, or when they go through. I can get them the ServPro bills. I can get them whatever they need.
So can we make a motion that we would accept the ServPro bills to be paid out for the remainder amount of the money that got reimbursed?
I don't think so, because I don't know that I don't have the information from Ken Driscoll, the auditor, as to those bills, so I can't say that they've been audited. I'm assuming they have, but I don't have that information.
We're not obligated to appropriate those funds either,
We are authorized to appropriate them at the auditor's office on behalf of the commissioners.
per statute.
Okay, that's what I'm at. So Mr. Stables can do that for us, under his responsibility.
Yes.
So it would be if I may, it would be the encouragement to contact ServPro and to check with Mr. Driscoll to make sure that if there's any bills outstanding and they can be processed.
There are bills outstanding. I just don't know.
Can they be processed?
Yes.
And then get them into the hopper.
I'd like to make a motion that we lower the 580,000 to 424,000. We can go lower, but we can't go over. And that, with the 156 that she has on hand, is 580,000. And we're gonna use up our money.
However,
It's
just
still
one
not gonna
second.
be enough. It's not, we're
Yeah,
gonna
well-
next month anyway, it's not gonna be enough.
Even, okay, please,
The recorder, we just did the PO and that's gonna be submitted tomorrow because we were waiting on signatures from the third commissioner. So we finally got that today and that's gonna be submitted tomorrow. And I believe that that's $42,000 for the recorder.
Okay.
So take that off of the 150 something.
I'd like to change my motion.
well,
Let's just pay the 580 now. We're gonna have to pay it now or next month anyway. The bottom line is,
And if the insurance company
put it in there and
pays us,
pay out.
back anyway.
Exactly.
Mr. Cunningham, would you be willing to tweak your motion so that if we get another check from Chubb, that it first goes to pay back our emergency reserve and then it starts paying anything else that we receive checks wise, so that we're getting reimbursed first, not at the end of this project?
Who cares sorry.
yeah, go ahead, if I may first, Mr. Yagelski. The problem with taking the money back is that they have to approve this work. And now if you're talking about getting the 580,000 back first, that's a different story, and then I misunderstood you. So I want to make sure I understand you, because as far as the first 1.7 stuff, we're going to have to deal with that completely separate.
Yeah, this is just
So,
this item.
so the point is that out of the next funding, if they're approving this and we're laying out the money for it, we should get that back.
I think all council members would agree that any money we take out of our emergency reserve fund that gets reimbursed by the insurance company will go back into the emergency reserve fund. So I will certainly add that.
And I think we need to come up with a motion to use up the 156, 154. Right.
42.
Minus the whatever for the recorder, and then at least at a minimum apply it towards cut the check, because we know that it's going to come back.
So here's the question so that everybody can hear the answer. No, for you. Your actual bill for May is?
My May bill was 660,000, and the reason it was over the estimate is because we had ordered flooring for adult probation and some other items that weren't expected to come in till a later time. Literally the day I was doing the May bill, it was like the first week in June, we got the bill for the flooring and stuff. Again, that's from a local company here in LaPorte, a vendor. So I wanted to include that to try to get that to claims for them so we could get them their money and get them paid. So that the estimate was on, other than we actually received some bills that were out of that billing cycle that I wanted to include to try to keep people in a timely pay manner.
So we're going to use up.
Let's pay the 580. That's what I'm saying. My motion now is to put the 580
and
exhaust the original funds.
154.
And if we have a little left over in between, out of the 580, we have a little left over.
Second.
We have a first.
And anything that's left over goes back into the emergency reserve fund, obviously.
That was part of it too. So thank you for reaffirming. We have a first and we have a second. Any other discussion?
Just a real quick discussion. So,
yes.
Darlene, when I had met with her, she submitted $100,000 of bills. Some of it's been paid. Where is that money at? Because she's been buying and still taking care of things too. Has everybody been keeping track of all the other departments that are buying? And are they being submitted?
Hold on, Mark, that's personal property. We're not even there yet. Right now, we're just talking real property.
Okay, so
that's a different line. Yeah, that's a whole nother basket.
Well, I just meant they said they weren't submitting bills, but there are bills, but it's under different categories.
It's personal property, and we don't have a full inventory, and we don't. Yes, okay, that's another mess.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, any other discussion? Hearing no other discussion, roll call, please.
Councilman Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Councilman Novak.
Aye.
Councilman Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilman Mullenhour.
Aye.
Councilman Yagelski.
Aye.
Councilman Keel.
Nay.
Councilman Karanka.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 nay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Now need to go back to old business 1A about reconsidering a tabled item, LaPorte County order an additional appropriation for legal fees not to exceed $10,000. Would anybody like to?
Motion to take off the table.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to take it off the table. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Nays?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, from what I could tell, it's taken off the table. Would anybody like to entertain conversation or motion or whatever on this? Now that it's off the table.
I'll go first. My impression and my understanding is that we're obligated to provide a legal defense to elected officials in the county, whether we agree with the suit that they're in or not. In this instance, the auditor is being sued personally. There's a reasonable question here that is yet to be decided by the court about whether he should be being sued individually or if he should be getting sued in his position as an elected official. If he's being sued in his position as elected official, we're obligated to provide him a legal defense. My it seems unfair, given there's good reason to believe he's being sued in his position as an elected official, for us to string him along and either obligate him to pay his bills or leave his attorney unpaid. So my recommendation would be for us to pay his legal bills at this time with a provision that, should it be determined by the court that he's being sued in his individual capacity, that then he'd be expected to refund that money to the county. So if we're obligated to provide him a legal defense, we did, and we fronted the money, and he's not out, and his attorney isn't out while we figure that out. Who knows when the court will make a decision, and otherwise we're not down any funds. He's certainly not the only elected official who is going to be going through lawsuits, and whether we like it or not, we have to provide them a legal defense. So
Is that a motion?
That is a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Conversation, discussion.
So my question is, and I've said from the beginning, that if we owe it, by God, we'll pay it. I've never waived from that. The thing that I have an issue with is we're handed a bill for $9,610, a year's worth of bills, with no input, nothing. It's $250 an hour, so it's higher than what we pay our county current attorneys here. Second thing is, Mr. Stables, how much is the bill right now to date?
I have a new attorney, and there's an additional billing that will be coming.
What's the bill to date? What's the last bill you got this year?
I'd have to look it up. I got an email with the bill.
Because here's my point. It doesn't matter. So in other words, and don't take this the wrong way. It could be you. It could be someone other department. They're just spending money willy-nilly. In other words, they're paying for it. I don't care. I don't care what the bill is. We're paying the bill. Shouldn't we be getting a monthly invoice from that attorney? Wouldn't you think that'd be? We're the ones on the hook for it.
You have one there. You'll be getting another one. You'll be getting.
I have one for an entire year's worth of bills
because he didn't submit it until January.
So who's the attorney now? Since the last attorney you had was the previous county attorney.
Tom Vetney.
And how much is he charging an hour?
Similar rate.
Similar.
Mm-hmm.
The same rate?
280.
280. So it's higher. So it's even more.
I'm entitled to a defense.
You're everybody's entitled to it. You know what? People in jail are entitled to a public defender. We've seen what public defenders get paid. I think it's shameful what the public defenders get paid compared to prosecutors. That's my point. That's my to quote our attorney, that's my rub in this whole thing, is the fact that there's no control over any of this.
I have publicly stated that a settlement was offered to the other side to settle for half and split the difference. We operated in good faith for the sake of the county to try to reduce costs. I asked for the support of the council to back up the auditor in protecting the taxpayers of LaPorte County. You and a few other council people on the finance committee said that some of these charges that this attorney charged were inappropriate.
You gave us 12 emails, and the conversation was 4 of them we felt, and this is myself, Mr. Cunningham, and Mr. Yagowski, 4 of those we said, yeah, these are definitely questionable. That's the way it was said. So my point is, here's my settlement, and I know there's an offer here. Here's my settlement. We'll pay all your bills to date. You pay all of Friedman's bills to date. And let's just walk away from this whole thing. Because here's what it is. We got $9,600 for last year, probably $6,000 for this year. What do you think it is? Ballpark? You got an idea?
I could look up the email.
So let's say $6,000 for this year. So we're into this for $15,000 for a dispute over $8,000 some dollars. Is that what it is?
There's a principle involved.
I'm asking you a question. I asked you a question. I didn't ask you about principle.
You're making a statement.
I asked you a question, a number. What is the number that we owe him currently that is being disputed?
Friedman? It's roughly $10,000.
Roughly $10,000.
That's right.
Is that why you're holding?
Investor, does this look like a good investment for the taxpayers? For the taxpayers that we just talked all this about taxpayers and the taxpayers' money and everything else.
Defending the Sean Fagan case, which is a horrific case that to have to defend. I mean,
What's that got to do? What
You're
we're
gonna
not
be stuck
talking? What are we talking about?
So,
What
I
are
don't
we
want
talking
to. I don't want to have a debate with you, Councilman.
If I may, Mr. DiMartino, are these prices outlandish or unreasonable for an attorney?
Well, I know that y'all are paying me $1.50 an hour, but my rate on the street is $300 an hour. So I mean, that's the range. You go to Barnes and Thornburg, it's $700 an hour. You go to some other people, it's $1.50 an hour. You know, so there is a range. But does that answer your question?
In case someone hasn't told you recently, we appreciate you giving us the 150 rate.
Honestly,
well, I don't know. Look with your looks today.
Scott's coming for a raise.
Well, hold on. With the looks I got a few minutes ago, you're probably saying he's only $150 an hour a lawyer. But
Mr. Keel?
Yes, Mr. Yagowski.
I got a question for you. So I understand your motion, but the only problem I have with the motion as it stands right now is that there is no incentive to settle. It's just an incentive to keep paying, and this could go on for 25, 35 years or whatever the period of time is going to be. I know I'm just throwing it out there stupid, but there really is no incentive. If there was a set amount and maxed out at set amount, and then he's going to have to figure out where he's got to go, there's got to be an incentive for him to settle, both parties to settle.
You pose an excellent point. And so to this, I would defer to Mr. DiMartino. If we're obligated to provide a legal defense, can we cap that legal defense? Because again, there are other ongoing lawsuits.
You can. And you all read my opinion letter. I gave you all the options. You have the ability to frame anything you want. You could, just like the government will put on conditions on funding a road, you can put conditions, should you choose, on funding this, but that's your call.
Mr. Keel, I'd like to see if you consider $150 an hour. At that point, let Mr. Stables have to take care of whatever he has in addition to that. That means we're not going to refuse.
I don't think you could do that. I don't think you could do that retroactive. I think that, you know what I mean? Because he was told to go out and retain a lawyer. I don't think, Mark, that you can go back retroactively and say, well,
I don't remember.
You know what I mean?
I don't think we told him to go retain a lawyer.
We never said to go get a lawyer, so I don't know where that came from. But
well, he needed to retain a lawyer.
But we never told him, go get it, we'll pay it.
No, you didn't say, I didn't say that. But I'm just saying, I don't think you can go back retroactively.
I'd like to weigh in here on the accountability. Remember, I complimented a guy that came in tonight from Kansas City and said he's accountable. I'm partly accountable for the position Mr. Stables is in, because I sat on that finance committee. He brought some bills to us. Three of us and Mr. DiMartino were present, and we agreed that there were several, 3 or 4, that we did not think should be paid. On the surface, didn't look like they should be paid. So I'm in a conflicted position where I'm not going to vote not to give Mr. Stables an attorney when I partly put him to mind. If the 3 of us on the committee had said, well, we think those are all fine. In fact, we didn't, because we realized that some of the previous bills that had been paid probably shouldn't have been paid, but we can't go back and undo that. We didn't make a decision, don't pay this bill. We said, we think there's a reason not to pay it unless you get further explanation. So I'm accepting that responsibility. I believe he needs an attorney. At the same time, I realize Mr. Novak's position is we've spent more money than we could have settled this for. If you didn't have the suit and we had paid Mr. Friedman, it was going to cost us less. That's a very good point.
Mr. Cunningham, you made a statement, and I agree 100%. It was the 3 of us that negotiated with Mr. Stables, and everybody did a good job in negotiations, and nobody's ever going to win, which is fine. But that did not state that we said that 4 were wrong, 6 were wrong, 8 were wrong. It just stated that we've seen some discrepancies, and we both agreed. We all agreed to that. But that was just from that point of our settlement that we settled back in December of that year.
Right.
So we also, if you remember, asked for additional settlements in the future that we were turned down from that. I don't deny that I agreed there were some things I wouldn't have voted for, but we also said, let's keep this momentum going. I remember at the December meeting, I think the attorney, I remember talking, and I'm not talking on the contents. We got a good thing going. Everybody sort of feels good about it. Nobody's 100% feeling good about it. Let's continue this for the next year. That did not happen. So the only thing I say is I'm not disappointed in it. I'm more disappointed that we couldn't keep the same monologue going step forward to up till now.
Right. Everything that we negotiated at that seemed like it was a December, November meeting.
Correct.
Was out the door that come January. And we were right back to where we were.
I don't disagree with that.
So I just want to ask you one other thing. You monitor and audit every attorney bill that goes through? Is that true?
I have asked
Is that a true statement?
my claims clerks to let every attorney bill come past my desk. That's correct.
So you audit them all. So there's nothing in Mr. Jones's bill from January 1st till the day that he left that is questionable.
I am not going to be nitpicked at a...
I'm asking you a question because you're saying you do it.
I'm asking you a question.
You turned his bill around in 72 hours. And today, with the help of Mr. Cunningham...
I thought there was a question there.
I'm getting to it. It's not for you, maybe. Today, with the help of Mr. Cunningham, you finally issued a check that you've been holding on your desk in ransom to be paid for everything else. And there's emails where it says, you said it's there, and I'm not going to give it to him until then.
So I've been held in ransom, but I don't...
You've been holding Mr. Friedman's bills.
I've been held in ransom because I was told that certain council people were threatened that if they give me this money, they'll have someone run against them. And I won't say who they were, but that was told to me.
You know what?
And so...
Bring all the people you want to run against. They can come tell me who you are. If you're a good person, by God, I'll step out. I don't have a problem. I'm not scared, Mr. Stables. I'm not scared.
Telling you what I was...
Gentlemen, I'd like to bring it back to the discussion at hand.
I just find it hard to believe that we have an attorney that bills for a question to review the student loan forgiveness application by Commissioner Haney. What does the federal or the student loan forgiveness form have to do with LaPorte County? And we were billed for it. And you signed off the check for it.
I'd be happy to take that under advisement, Councilman. It's the first time hearing of it.
My point, then read his bill. Read his bill, you'd have seen it. Scrutinize it like you do everybody else's.
Why don't you scrutinize
if it's not personal?
Gentlemen, let's hold it here.
Personal, sir.
No, let's hold it here.
Professional.
Come on.
Let's hold it here.
Mr. Ugalski made an interesting argument for putting reasonable constraints on this. Obviously, going forward, I think that's an interesting concept. Perhaps rather than a per hour amount, maybe a dollar cap. Shoot me a motion here, an amendment to the motion. I think I'm interested.
If we'll state this amount right now that you're saying that, and not just you, it's not picking on you, but it was said that I can't change this year, according to our attorney.
Up to this point,
They said I don't think you can go retroactive.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Ex post facto laws or something, right?
Well,
Okay, so it's January till this date. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't even know what date, because we settled 2 years ago, the last one, correct?
2 years ago.
yeah.
So,
Anything beyond this point.
$10,000
A year ago.
December 21.
Yeah.
Okay, and how, what was the total amount of hours that we had up for those $10,000? At two something an hour.
40 hours times 250 is 10,000.
40 hours times 250. Okay, so let's go 40 hours times 150 in the future, just so we have a number that I could go ahead and say I could accept that.
Mr. President, may I make one point? It is impossible.
1 second, just 1 second. I want to finish hearing his, and then I'll give you the opportunity if you don't
I'm
mind.
working with. It's always tough to work with four people when you're just negotiating. I was asked a direct question. I'm trying to answer the question back. So, Mr. Keel, that would be $6,000 in the future. Not that we wouldn't pay more, but we're only obligated for $6,000 in the future for the year period of time. So we've already agreed to 10,000 times the amount of hours. But if we have a set amount, that's 150 an hour. That's 6,000 to encourage this thing to be settled.
Mr. Ugalski, you have a billing that's still outstanding from January to June, and we just don't know that number. Yeah.
Looking for that.
Unless Mr. Stabos can look it up.
Well, he just got April, he was April?
No.
Oh, January, first of the year till today.
His billing, Mr. Stables' lawyer's
New
bill.
attorney. His new attorney.
Okay, so what do we totally owe right now?
We have no idea.
We don't know.
So again, if we go up to current date, we're saying we're paying up to current date of $10,000. At 275, I believe you said, correct?
Yeah, but it's not $10,000 up to current date, Mark.
Look, I've only got one bill submitted today. What's the total I owed right now?
I don't have that.
We don't know.
I don't have that.
What's the total they want today?
$610 for last year's bill.
I'll just repeat what was being said. We only have last year's bill for $9,610. We do not have any current billings to share with you at this time.
So then why are we discussing the actual amount then? Because there's no billing, there's no number, there's no pay.
I'm discussing if you're interested in putting a cap going forward beyond today. Whatever was in the past is in the past, and we can't control that price. But going forward, we could control the price.
And I'd be willing to work with you at a cap at $150 an hour to encourage this thing to settle from this date on.
We can't go backwards. You can go forward at $150 an hour.
Yeah, this would be going forward.
Hold on one second. I'd like to bring the commissioner's attorney in and just state your name for everybody, and we'll talk and share your thoughts on this, please.
Thank you. Scott Pajek, current LaPorte County attorney, temporary LaPorte County attorney. I'm here in support of Mr. Stabos. I just want to be clear. I think the bill should be paid. And I know there's a lot of history before I was ever involved. Prior to this, I get it. I understand it. I want to move forward. We have to get past these bills. The only concern I have, I think this gentleman's attorney should be paid, get out of the way. We have a legal issue here with respect to attorney fees. Typically, as you know, the commissioners approve the fees. It needs 2 of 3 votes. They approve the attorney fee bill. The auditor's office, from my understanding of the law, they can audit the rate. So for example, if it's $100 an hour and the attorney's charging actually $110 an hour, they can bring that to the commissioner's attention. There's also the issue of the scope of the work provided. That's where the rub comes in, is that if the auditor brings it back to the commissioner's attention and says, in my view, this 1/10 of an hour, these 2 hours are beyond the scope of the attorney's contract, I don't think this is a valid bill. Here's the legal issue. Can the commissioners override that? Can the commissioners say, we hear your point, this is our attorney, we're okay with the bill? Just write the check. You brought it to our attention, thank you, just write the check. At that point in time, there's no other way to put it, it becomes a political issue. That's something that can be brought out during election time by the auditor or anyone. I don't like the way these commissioners pay their attorney's fees, and they could be more diligent about it, and they could limit the scope of their representation. That's a political question in my view. The unfortunate thing about government law is we do not have good precedent. Many of these statutes have not been litigated. So we just can't go to a case that's Smith versus LaPorte County Commissioners or whatever on this issue. We don't have that. We're on new terrain. So what I hope to get out of this, if there's some finality, what may be worth the attorney's fees bills, regardless of what the answer is that hopefully we can get an answer. What's the proper role of the auditor? What's the proper role of the commissioners? How do we resolve this? Because I'm exhausted by this. I've only been in this job for a month or almost 2 months. This is exhausting. And you've been dealing with this for a long time. We need to move forward. We need to get to an answer and just move forward. And I don't mean to, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to my bosses, the commissioners, or Mr. Stables, but we need to move forward. That's where we are. And I just want to be supportive to get these bills paid, an effort to move forward, and hopefully we get some finality. Because I think we ask what the investment is. It might not be the best investment, but it's an investment in perhaps getting an answer that we don't have any current law on. I know there's been different opinions by the State Board of Accounts. They're wishy-washy. Rate and scope, rate and scope. That's all we know. Those aren't defined terms. So I'm sorry, I can't be more specific with you. I just want you to know where we are. And for lack of a better description, we're all in the middle of the lake and we got to swim somewhere to shore.
May I?
Yes, please.
I absolutely agree with what both attorneys have said. I would love to settle this, but us paying his bill today does not settle the payments that are owed to the attorney that are still in dispute. This isn't a settle. We're just settling half of it. We're settling his half, and he can continue, because am I correct that this attorney is still doing work for the county?
The hearing at the end of July.
Right. So but you see, I think you're missing what Mr. Pajak is saying. Either that or I've missed it. He's saying this needs some finality, and that means a ruling of the court, not a settlement. So the issue is whether it's $50,000 or $60,000 or $70,000 in order to get a trial court ruling and then potentially an appellate court ruling. Is that juice worth squeeze to determine whether it's scope or rate or the auditor's function? And that's something that you all have to determine as the financial body of the county. So that,
Mr. DiMartino, I think that's what we did. I think that the point of the matter was the first time when you sat with us.
but that doesn't resolve the issue, Mark. The issue is still the scope of the auditor's duties.
Mr.
That's the issue.
Again, I didn't say that. But as we're coming up, we got to resolve it. That's what we were trying to do before he came up. We have always been trying to negotiate with Mr. Stables about this.
But that doesn't resolve the issue, Mark. The issue is, what does the law say about the scope of Mr. Stables'
Mr. Paycheck said it very simple. Don't pay him anything. Let the courts decide. That's what he said. The courts will decide. And let the courts decide, and then we'll have to pay him accordingly.
Mr. Pajak, is it fair to expect public officials to front money for their own legal defense until they win their case?
I'll answer your question the best I can. I don't have an answer because I'm just in this new terrain since May 9th or whatever. But what I will tell you is, let's say I was the attorney when this lawsuit originated, and Mr. Stables, was sued individually. Strike that. He was sued as auditor of LaPorte County. And then you're probably thinking that's not an issue. He's sued as auditor of LaPorte County. We provide him with a defense. Well, guess what? If I'm that attorney, I could say, we're not spending the money on it. I'm just going to settle today. Pay the man his money. Pay, whoever's suing the money. We wouldn't even be here today if the county provided the auditor with a defense, because the commissioners could have just settled. And that's another issue we have here.
And we do that all the time.
Yeah, we do it all the time. And there might be a way down the road for the current auditor or future auditors to perhaps have their own budget for their own attorney. That's a whole other separate, we're not here for that today. But I'm just saying, practically speaking, Councilman Keel, if the auditor was sued in his official capacity, the commissioners could have just settled. And we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have had all this drama and all this stuff. But then the problem is, then the next bill comes, and there's the next issue. So I hope, I don't know if I don't want to bloviate, but I hope down the road, if there's issues with any attorney bill, we can say, hey, you have a bill for $10,000. We're not sure about $1,000 of it. Maybe, and then we can discuss that portion of it.
Would you and Mr. DiMartino be open to creating a policy or drafting something you think seems fair to kind of prevent this issue from coming up in the future about whether the council is obligated to provide a legal defense, like put a framework in place so elected officials know what to expect when it comes to legal defense on their behalf?
The law's settled on that. You look at the complaint. If it's within the duty of the job, you should be able to, you should provide a legal defense.
Of their choosing, or they should default to the counties?
It should, the county, if the county needs to.
So is the place that we went wrong in this, because I'm not disputing paying his.
Yes, the place that you went wrong was you let Mr.
Go out and pick-
No, the place that you went wrong is that it wasn't because Mr. Stabos and Mr. Friedman were involved. It wasn't handled like any other lawsuit. Any other lawsuit would go to the commissioner's office. It would go to Gallagher Bassett. They would set up a file. They would determine what to do. If local lawyers couldn't do it, they would send it to panel counsel. They would look at it. It wasn't handled like a normal lawsuit because of all the drama.
So is it too late to do that now?
Yes, you can't go back a year and 2 years later. You just can't. But that's the reason why this went afoul. Why was this handled differently?
I think it went foul. Plus, then when Mr. Stabos got his attorney, that the council didn't keep better tabs on it.
That wasn't the council's job.
I get it, but now we've got a runaway bill that is still running. I mean, we don't even have here we are, June 26th, and he doesn't have a statement for this year at all. I mean, you guys, I mean, you're Mr. Transparent.
Mr. President.
The other problem we have, if I may.
Mr. President, I've been trying to make a point for 20 minutes here. I had 2 points.
Okay.
One was that I think we all know that I cannot get a local attorney to go up against the person I'm going up against for $150 an hour. It's not going to happen. They're not going to do it. And two, I would remind you all, and I would ask for your support in this aspect of this, looking you all in the eye respectfully, that Commissioner Haney had asked for the items that were in these billings, the emails and the source documents, and they were not provided to an actual county commissioner by the vendor. I need your support in this to stand for this principle that a vendor needs to be accountable to his client. I need your support in that.
So
Thank you.
I guess the thing I'd say is there's settlements all the time with county employees, department heads, officers all the time, and the officer's absolutely right, dead right, but it's cheaper for them to settle it than it is to do it the other way. I think you've made a valid point. I think this thing is just going to keep going until.
While I agree that having a settlement can be nice in that it quickly puts an end to it, this is an open question. Can the auditor decide not to pay things? It's a novel question, it seems. We're blazing a new trail here. Is that worth spending money to get an answer so that we don't have to keep asking this question for the next attorney or next bill that Mr. Stabos questions and doesn't pay?
The answer is no, it's not worth it, and that's why I offered a settlement to split the difference. But it's not worth a settlement that says I'm going to give you all the money.
Are there any?
And no accountability.
Is there only litigation bills now with Mr. Friedman?
He is now no, he's got non-litigation also again.
I can answer that question, Councilman.
Okay.
As the current attorney, I do use Mr. Friedman. He's very experienced and skilled in certain things. I'm not going to go into details because it's
that's fine.
Privileged thing,
Right.
county issues right now, and I'm proud to say that I still use Andrew Jones's law firm and as well. So it's not there's multiple attorneys that we're using.
I just thought maybe the scrutinizing of the bill because non-litigation, am I correct? Usually go through. Litigation bills usually go through.
But that's an issue, Councilman. And again, I'm not trying to get cross with the auditor or anything. The issue is, so let's say auditor has an issue with 2 hours of the bills. Brings it to the attention of the commission. They say, thank you, Mr. Auditor. We see your point. We don't care. Pay the bill. And then the auditor doesn't pay the bill. And then we're going to have this quagmire and logjam over and over and over again. So I hope.
So how do we fix it?
How do we fix it? But it doesn't matter what we say. And again, not to get cross with the auditor, if the auditor doesn't write the check after the commissioners say write the check. And so I don't know if this current lawsuit in Porter County is going to fix that. I don't know if we can get an opinion from the Attorney General or if it's something that just has to be appealed.
What's the State Board of Accounts say?
Well, don't be smart, Alec, but the current lawsuit in the posture that it is right now is not going to resolve the issue. The only issue that the current lawsuit right now, the posture that it's in, is going to resolve is whether Mr. Stabos has qualified immunity and should not have been sued individually. That's the issue. So if that's determined, you're never going to get an answer to your, and I have a legal opinion as to that, but that's for another day.
And what is it?
For another day, please.
Mr. Paycheck?
Yes.
So we did try to, whether whether the commissioners filed suit or not, because it was an individual suit at the time. It wasn't, it was about not paying the particular bill, and they told them to pay it. So, okay, so after that, we all agreed, our attorneys, Cunningham, Novak, and Yagelski, negotiated and worked out a deal. We were willing to keep doing this. This is the council's always been involved in it. It hasn't been a free for all. The problem is, though, is that there is no ending to this thing. I was willing to work out something before you came up with the council members, but we have to have something that it doesn't become a free for all. And that's all I asked to do, is stop the free for all.
I understand that, Councilman. The point's well taken, and my point being is, even if everyone agreed today, okay, pay the other party the money.
Split the difference.
Mr. Auditor, we're going to pay you all your attorney's fees, and we're done with this today. Well, then we're going to have the next bill, and the next bill, and this can start all over again. That's the issue. I don't want to comment about current litigation. I'm not part of that Porter County litigation. I assume it is over attorney's fees, I suppose. Is that correct? Can I at least say that? Yeah. So at some point, that issue might come up as that lawsuit moves forward, where the judge would have to make the determination whether or not these bills are owed after the commissioners approve the bills. And then depending on how the court rules, it can be appealed, and this can cost a lot of money. And that's basically up to the council to determine, do they want to front this litigation? I'm just letting you know where we are, so to speak.
I mean, we can't even like come up with a cap like you were talking about.
That's what I agree. If we could come with a cap, I'd be willing to make a negotiation. I thought you brought a really good point up there. But
I think Mr. DiMartino suggested kind of a cap of maybe 50,000. Now, I would say that the downside of a cap is that then any of these public officials, their adversary, is going to know that if they can run the clock and waste time, they're going to hit the cap and they're going to be forced to settle. And that may not achieve the outcome that we want.
But the adversary, you would assume, is having to pay attorney fees also. He's not representing himself, because you know what they say about that.
Plus, I would hope in the future, from now on, any of these that happen are handled the way you said, that they go to Bassett or whoever, that they're handled internally, and it's not, people aren't allowed to just go out and shop and get their own attorneys and be able to do their own thing outside of the scope. My only thing is, I don't have an issue with it. I understand about him getting an attorney, needing an attorney, and having trouble finding one. I understand that. My issue is we have no control over any of the money with this.
In hindsight, Councilman, and looking backwards, the county provides the attorney at the rate at that time, $150 an hour.
$175.
Well, back at that time, back when this originally happened. Now it's $175. Thank you, commissioners. But we move forward, the lawsuit goes on, but then the commissioners can settle it. The only problem is, respectfully, the next bill comes, and then there's the next issue with the next thing. And so I think the only way to get an answer to this is to just litigate it to the end.
So how do we litigate it to the end?
With this current case.
We let some other.
Not necessarily.
We let
Wait.
another council.
Wait, Mr. Paycheck. You guys say, how do you do it to the end? We are not, the council's been in total agreement to settle this thing a long time ago. It's the commissioners that have not. We can't make them change their mind.
Councilman Yagelski, let's say the commission votes next meeting, settle it, pay the plaintiff in this case every penny he wants, and we settle it. And the auditor doesn't write the check, doesn't sign the check.
There you go. We're still in the same.
We're still in the same position. So I'm just trying
question unanswered.
I'm just trying to be as candid as I can be here about where we are, and so I'm trying to be as efficient as we can. We are where we are. I would really like to move forward and focus on county business, paving roads and stormwater and buildings. But
how do we get a handle on this bill then?
I would not recommend a cap, because I don't want Mr. Vetney knowing that he can make up to 50 grand on this case. No,
I wouldn't recommend a cap either.
Okay, so let's pull it all back together. We have a motion on the floor to pay this not to exceed $10,000 or to pay the exact amount. I don't remember which one you said.
We'll go with not to exceed, and also to condition it upon that if it's determined by the court that he's being sued in his personal capacity, that then he refunds the amount of money that the county has paid.
And we had a second on this. We've done a lot of discussion, so it's time for a roll call.
You want a roll call?
Please.
Read that motion again, please.
Do you want me to do it?
Please.
Motion is not to exceed $10,000 to pay this attorney bill, and in the event that Mr. Stabos is determined to be being sued in his personal capacity, this is a decision of the court, that then he would be expected to refund this money to the county.
And what about something for this year? Meanwhile, we're just running.
Didn't advertise for that, so we can't address it tonight.
We can. We're not putting it. We're not spending money.
This is what the motion is.
I'm discussing the motion right now.
Okay, we discussed it quite a bit already.
And I'm still
And we don't,
discussing.
but we didn't have an answer to this.
As much as I'd love to cover
So
up
we
until
can
this
keep
point,
talking about it for
we
2
don't have the
hours,
amount.
And we're still not gonna have an answer. So that's why I called for a roll call.
Did we get an answer from Mr. Stabos when it was, I think, presented here a few minutes ago, if it was used the term hostage, that we're being held hostage because he would go ahead and pay Mr. Friedman that attorney bill if we okayed this tonight? That's what I've heard. That's what I've seen.
He paid.
Is that true?
He paid it today.
I think we've discussed that already. If you want me to comment on that, then I have some things that I want to ask you about your being held. You're being held hostage.
Oh, yeah.
No, we're not.
Go right ahead.
No, we're not going this.
I don't want to go there.
We're not doing this. Okay, gentlemen? We're not doing
We'll
this.
bring it up next month then.
So we
Discuss
can definitely put it on next month's
the
agenda.
bill.
But by then,
It's accruing
there is a
now.
court date between now and the next meeting.
Yeah, but the odds are you won't have a ruling.
We're not gonna.
Just so you know.
No, we get it. And then we could talk amongst ourselves. Maybe we can even see if this gets settled. Maybe.
I would request, if you could from your attorney, request a bill to date so that we know exactly.
So
what
we
we're
can
at now.
appropriate for the next
I
one.
think that's the least that we can get.
Okay.
I'll email.
And maybe a monthly statement. Monthly
Yeah,
statement.
I'll email you that tonight or tomorrow.
All right, a monthly statement then would be, if you get one?
Yeah, I'll.
Do they do those?
I don't know if he does monthly because sometimes he doesn't do anything for
Okay.
3 or 4 weeks.
Okay, well, there.
Gentlemen, we have over here, Mr. Cunningham.
I'd like to make an amendment to the original motion that, because we advertised it not to exceed 10,000, but we now know what the actual bill is, so let's pay the actual bill.
So do we,
West, I'll second that.
so you're gonna amend your own motion so we don't have to go any further?
$9,600.
$9,610 is now what's in the motion, and that if it is ruled that it is personal, it will be refunded. That is what the motion is. Please pull the roll call.
Can I ask one last question? Do that. It's fine, because you already made a different change. Mr. Giamartino, will any of this stuff affect the lawsuit of us agreeing to pay this tonight?
When you mean affect the lawsuit, will it?
Oh, in other words, just say, well, the council was in agreement to pay, will it be used at all against us by paying anything on the
No,
bill?
you mean as to the issues in the lawsuit, as to the dispute between Friedman and Stabos.
Right.
So we're gonna actually state that on this, that this has nothing to do with the dispute.
The merits.
As long as-
This has nothing to do with the merits of the case.
So would you mind putting that in your motion, please?
Sure, tack on in there. This has nothing to do with us weighing in on the merits of the lawsuit. We're just providing a legal defense as we're obligated to do.
Thank you.
Okay, and who was the second? Was it, or I'm sorry, who was the original second? Okay, so we're good there. I'm gonna call for the roll call.
Councilman Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilman Keel.
Aye.
Councilman Karanka.
Aye.
Councilman Mullenhour.
Nay.
Councilman Novak.
No.
Councilman Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Councilman Yagelski.
Aye.
I believe it's 5-2.
Okay. Moving on. We have council or attorney judge, comments? Anybody like to make a comment?
I have a quick comment. The LaPorte County Fair is July 8th through the following Saturday. So everybody come out and enjoy the fair.
That's a great comment. Anybody else?
Congratulations as well to Dakota. Perfect score on a test. Get started next month.
Good job.
Agree with both of those comments. I just want to thank my colleagues for being willing to entertain my questioning. I know it was long and there was a lot of them. I hope I was able to do it respectfully, politely, and diplomatically. And I appreciate you guys being willing to allow me to ask all of these questions, even if we didn't totally agree at the end.
Any
Yes, sir,
others? If not,
Mr.
I'm
President.
sorry. Yes, please.
So, I voted for this tonight because I want this thing to start moving forward. The attorney I know has not had experience from the commissioner to know that we have been trying to push this thing forward. But with that, one of the things that upsets me more is I've talked, because, you know, as I ran for mayor, I was talking to a lot of people. Our representation for LaPorte County and EDC is terrible right now. We've got to straighten it out because right now it seems like all we're doing is fighting. St. Joe County picked up that good account there for the battery company. We did not do a good job in presentation. We did not do a very good job while we were there. We need to do something better. If this is what's going to be the amount of money we're paying out, just to go ahead and pay it out. I'm not in favor of paying EDC money out just to have a director. We've got to be better in LaPorte County. We got to sell ourselves better. We should have been included on the Mr. President. When I was on there, and Mr. Novak was, I go all the way back to Mr. Cooley. We signed paperwork that said we would not disclose it. We were at those meetings. You should be at those meetings also. Second on development's got to happen for LaPorte County, and it's not happening the proper way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Are there any other comments?
Mr. President, I have a point of order. With regard to the 5-2 motion you passed, I'm not aware of a fund that you listed.
Recommendations?
I'll take it out of the fund. Jim, you got even smiling.
No, I'm glad for the correction. I'm just going back to Riverboat, wind tax, or ARP. So,
Riverboat can afford that.
yeah, Riverboat.
Yeah.
Everybody agreed to Riverboat verbally?
Riverboat.
Yes. Mark, do you agree to?
Yes.
Thank you. Now we've got it settled. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
You can announce.
All those in favor, aye. Thank you all. Have a great evening.